Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, Parallel Deku. Back with another fanfiction. This is the series of What If Deku Became Catnap? Now before starting, please give this video a like. And subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Izuku stood on the roof of the #1 hero, feeling as if his dreams were being crushed right before his eyes. Emotionless, he grabbed his backpack and pulled out a syringe containing a purple liquid he had found in a science class drawer labeled poison. He had never thought he would want to use it, especially since it wasn't green like the others. Ignoring his doubts, he took out his phone and texted his mother and Kaken goodbye, expressing how much of a disappointment he felt. He silenced his phone. Taking a deep breath, he pressed the syringe to his neck, believing it was for the best. As the liquid entered his body, he expected to simply pass out, but instead, an intense pain surged through him. He attempted to stand but collapsed to the ground as purple fur began to envelop his hands. His thumbs retracted, and his fingers transformed into large, cat-like paws. His feet burst out of his shoes, revealing the same furry paws. His arms and legs elongated, causing his uniform to rip apart as his body grew larger. The transformation continued, and just as everything went dark, he felt a final surge of change. When he regained consciousness, he found himself in a garage. Lifting his heavy head, he looked around at a multitude of unfinished inventions, some missing key components. He tried to stand but fell onto all fours, bumping his head against the ceiling. Struggling to move, he collapsed again with a loud thud. Footsteps approached from behind a door, and it swung open to reveal a short girl with a mature build. She had salmon-pink hair styled into thick dreadlocks and wide, sloped eyes with green-yellow irises that resembled scope lenses. She greeted him, noting that he had been unconscious for a while since she found him on the roof. Izuku attempted to speak but coughed out red smoke that smelled like lavender. She advised him not to try speaking, explaining that his vocal cords had been replaced by a gas tank. Pointing to a mirror, she set it in front of him. As he looked at his reflection, he saw black eyes with white pupils and a large toothless mouth, with what appeared to be a pipe in his throat. The girl suggested he write something down, placing a slab of wood in front of him. Without thumbs, he had to use his claw to scratch out a message. He asked how she found him. She explained that she had seen him on the roof with her quirk while searching for parts in an abandoned building. She had witnessed his transformation and rushed to help him, mentioning a skinny blonde man she had encountered. Izuku introduced himself by writing his name on the wood, and she introduced herself as Mei Hatsum. She handed him his backpack, which he carefully unzipped to reveal his notebooks and an All Might figurine. His pupils darkened as he clenched his paw, accidentally destroying the figurine. Concerned, Mei asked why he disliked All Might. He wrote that All Might had crushed his dreams in front of him. Mei expressed surprise at All Might's harshness. As he tried to stand again, he collapsed once more. Mei scanned his body and informed him that his entire skeleton had been replaced with a metal endoskeleton, explaining that he was lucky to be able to move his paw. She advised him to rest, as his body was still adjusting. Before she left, he wrote down his favorite food, katsudon. Mei promised to wake him for dinner in a few hours, and he laid his head down to sleep. Later, as he walked through an alley carrying a bag of food with his tail, he heard a female voice cry for help. He rushed toward the scream and saw a man with a knife threatening a woman on the ground. Approaching from behind the villain, he struck him hard against the wall, knocking him out instantly. Turning to the woman, he unzipped his chest to reveal buttons inside. Pressing a green button, a speaker activated, and he advised her to be cautious in the alleys, as they could be dangerous before walking away. A few minutes later, he entered the garage to find Mei working on one of her inventions. He presented her with a bag containing an energy drink, a new screwdriver, and some chocolate. As he lay on his built-in bed, Mei thanked him and grabbed the chocolate, sitting beside him and leaning against his furry chest. A purring sound escaped him, causing her to chuckle and him to blush. She mentioned she would miss him when he entered UA and asked about his favorite invention. Excitedly, she rushed to her work desk and pulled out a compressed water gun, startling him. She reassured him that it wasn't loaded with anything harmful, explaining that compressed water could cut through anything, even diamonds. He chuckled at her enthusiasm, teasing her about her expression when showcasing new inventions. She blushed in embarrassment, and they shared a light-hearted moment together. Aizu chuckled, noting how cute Mei looked when she blushed. Her face turned completely red, but before she could respond, he gently pulled her closer with his tail and laid her down beside him. He advised her to get some sleep, reminding her that she would need the energy for her upcoming test in the support course. With that, he rested his head down as she settled next to him. It had been a week since Mei had been busy finishing several assignments, and Aizu had been there to support her. He had managed to secure a spot at UA, and only the principal knew that he picked her up after she fainted from exhaustion following her invention sessions. Currently, he was bringing her lunch when he heard the sound of an engine. Turning, he saw a blue-haired boy in armor, about his age, running toward him. The boy stopped in front of Aizu, catching his breath as he asked if he had called a pro hero yet. Aizu replied that he had not and inquired about what was happening. The boy informed him that villains were attacking the USJ. Aizu was puzzled, questioning why anyone would want to attack Universal Studio Japan. The boy insisted that he needed pro heroes immediately. Aizu pointed out the button to call for help, mentioning he might go check it out. Before he could finish, he took off in the direction the boy had come from, while the boy rushed inside the school. A couple of minutes later, Aizu arrived at a massive dome where the door had been blown open. He entered to find a group of people in costumes. Something suddenly flew into the sky, escaping the dome. As he walked past the students and down the stairs, a girl with brown hair in a skin-tight suit yelled at him to stop. Aizu pointed to a man in black clothing and a scarf, who was being carried by a small, oddly dressed student and a frog-like student, stating that he would help him. He unzipped his chest and pressed a button, releasing red gas from a tube in his mouth that enveloped the area. Terrifying screams echoed around him as he navigated through the gas. He heard something he never expected, Bakugo crying. Aizu moved toward the sound and found Bakugo at his feet, tears streaming down his face. His eyes turned red as he saw the illusions surrounding them, everyone they had ever met, taunting Bakugo with hurtful words. In a moment of clarity, Aizu grabbed a gas mask from his chest and placed it over Bakugo's face, silencing the voices. He then lifted Bakugo onto his back and heard another cry. A spiky red-haired boy was staring at a lifeless body of a pink-haired girl in a junior high uniform. Aizu quickly put a gas mask over the boy's face as he collapsed, catching him and placing him on his back. As he continued, he heard sobbing and looked down to see a boy half covered in ice, with red and white hair and a burn mark on his face. Aizu approached him, putting a mask over his face, calming him down before he fell asleep. He set him on his back and noticed an area where the gas had not reached. Emerging from the gas, Aizu saw a figure made of purple smoke and a man covered in hands, facing off against All Might, who appeared exhausted and on the brink of collapse. Using his tail, Aizu carefully placed the three boys on the ground before watching the standoff. Suddenly, the hand villain charged at All Might, who was clearly at his limit. In a burst of speed, Aizu positioned himself in front of the villain just as his hand was about to make contact. He grabbed the villain's arm and snapped it with a swift motion, causing the villain to collapse in pain. The villain shouted angrily, but before he could retaliate, a bullet struck his hand, followed by 2 more gunshots hitting his legs, forcing him to the ground. More gunfire erupted, but the purple smoke figure blocked the bullets before transforming into a portal and teleporting away. As the red gas dissipated, Aizu saw villains on the ground experiencing panic attacks. He felt fortunate to have rescued Bakugo and the other 2 before the chaos ensued. Pro heroes began descending the stairs, and All Might expressed his gratitude, asking who Aizu was. Aizu clicked the button in his chest, replying that he was someone who once admired All Might before walking away toward the stairs. As he ascended, he encountered pro hero Vlad King, who had Principal Nizu on his shoulder. Vlad remarked on Aizu's role in taking care of the crazy girl in the support course. Both he and Nizu thanked Aizu for helping All Might and the 3 boys. Aizu reassured them that the effects of the gas were temporary and that the boys would be fine by the next day. Nizu then made a request, mentioning an open spot in Class 1A due to a student not being suited for hero work. He handed Aizu a paper, which Aizu accepted, promising to consider it as he tucked it into his chest pouch next to his gas chamber before walking out. In the garage, Aizu was awakened by the sound of the door opening. He opened his eyes to see Mei, wearing a mask and holding gas tanks labeled with various types of gas. He sat up, tired, as she inserted the last tank into his gas chamber. Just as she was about to zip him back up, she pulled something out of his chest, causing him to open his eyes wide at the sound of paper. Mei looked worried and asked why he was hiding it. Aizu pondered how to respond, and she pressed further, asking if it was before the roof incident. A tear rolled down his cheek as he admitted that he had been quirkless before meeting her, explaining that he had been told he could never be a hero without a quirk. My idol even said it. My own mother was the only person keeping me together, but I had to let her go. I thought that syringe contained poison, but it turned me into this. Mei gasped, expressing her understanding. When she met me, she found a whole new meaning in life, but she felt she could never be a hero. I wondered who was stopping her now, and she replied that it was herself. Mei looked at me with concern before kissing me gently, urging me not to let the past interfere with our future together. She encouraged me to join the class and pursue the dream I once had. I felt warmth spread through me from her kiss and thanked her, promising to try. I kissed her again before grabbing the paper to sign up. To be continued. In a meeting room, Tsukachi reported that the police had investigated a group calling themselves the League of Villains. They found no matches in the quirk registry for the names Shigaraki or Kurogyri, nor for any quirks that could crumble everything with a touch or create warp gates. They were neither citizens nor registered users. They had not registered their quirks as part of the underground society. Vlad King noted that this meant they had no information about them. Snipe warned that once Shigaraki, the ringleader, healed from his gunshot wound, they would surely try again. He remarked on the boldness of the attack, which many would hesitate to execute. Shigaraki had made an absurd claim while hiding his own quirk, boasting about Nomu's abilities, and when things didn't go his way, he became visibly upset. Am speculated that the quirk was meant to draw him out. Nizu pointed out that it was foolish to abandon the advantage of having unknown quirks when facing heroes. Am added that it was a childish remark, as Shigaraki bragged about his possessions, revealing a simple mind that expected everything to go his way. He concluded that Shigaraki was a man-child with a childish sense of supremacy. Vlad King summarized it as a child with power. Midnight questioned whether Shigaraki had received the quirk counseling every child gets in school, and Snipe asked what that had to do with the current situation. Tsukachi explained that 72 villains had been arrested at USJ, all young and found in the alleys. The problem was that they supported the man-child and followed him. In a society filled with heroes, villains felt oppressed and might be drawn to such simple-minded evil. Vlad King agreed, noting that many people didn't know how to handle their quirks. Midnight found it a sobering thought. Tsukachi stated that thanks to the heroes, they could focus on their investigation and work on arresting the criminals. Nizu reflected that in a way, their students were similar. There was room for growth, especially if someone was backing Shigaraki and trying to mature that evil. In Class 1A, Hagakure asked if anyone had watched the news last night, noting that the entire class was featured, but she felt she didn't stand out. Ojiro commented that it was hard to stand out in her outfit. Kaminari mentioned that all the channels were covering the news, and Jiro pointed out that the hero course that trains pro-heroes had been attacked. Siro wondered what would have happened if the teachers hadn't arrived, while Sato praised Am for driving off the strong villains. Tokoyami agreed, acknowledging the astonishing strength displayed. As morning homeroom was about to start, Ida rushed in, instructing everyone to quiet down and take their seats. Siro pointed out that they were already seated, and Ida sat down, irritated at his mistake. Mina asked Tsuyu who would be teaching homeroom that day, and Tsuyu noted that Aizawa was supposedly in the hospital for his injuries. Just then, the door opened to reveal Aizawa, covered in bandages. Aizawa greeted the class, and they exclaimed in surprise at his early return. Kami praised him as a pro, while Ida began to speak but turned pale when he saw me walking in behind Aizawa. Uraraka exclaimed my presence, and Aizawa stated that while his welfare was of no concern, he wanted to introduce the new classmate replacing the last one. As I unzipped my chest, everyone instinctively got into battle positions. I clicked a button, and a microphone sound echoed in the room. I assured them that I would not attack, as they would all be knocked out in seconds if I did. The class settled down a bit nervously, and I noticed Bakugo staring at me intensely. I introduced myself as Aizu Ori. Aizawa instructed me to sit down behind Bakugo. As I walked past him, I laid on the ground like a cat, and the dots in my eyes disappeared. With that settled, Aizawa declared that our battle was not over yet. Bakugo questioned what he meant, and Mineta expressed fear over the villains returning. Aizawa informed them that the UA Sports Festival was approaching, and the class erupted in excitement over the prospect of a normal school event. However, Kami interrupted, questioning the wisdom of holding a sports festival so soon after a villain attack. Jiro echoed his concern, wondering what would happen if they attacked again. Aizawa explained that by proceeding with the event, they aimed to demonstrate UA's outstanding crisis management system. He assured them that security would be 5 times stronger this year and emphasized that the sports festival was a significant opportunity that should not be cancelled due to villains. Mineta hesitated, but I silenced him, insisting he didn't understand the importance of the event. Aizawa elaborated that the UA Sports Festival had become one of Japan's major events, taking the place of the Olympics. All the top heroes in the country would be watching for scouting purposes. After graduation, it was typical to join a pro agency as a sidekick, but many missed their chance to become independent and remained sidekicks forever. Jiro teased Kaminari about this, calling him dumb. Aizawa reminded them that being part of a popular hero agency would provide valuable experience and opportunities, and with only 3 chances a year, no aspiring hero could afford to let this opportunity slip away. He urged them to prepare. As the bell rang for lunch, Kira expressed his excitement despite the recent incident. Siro mentioned that if they performed well and stood out, it would be a significant step toward becoming professionals. Sato agreed, expressing that entering UA was worthwhile. Toko added that their chances were limited, and they couldn't let this opportunity slip away. While everyone talked, I sat at the charger, recharging my voice box. Kami, a bit envious, remarked that Shoji's bulky body naturally stood out. Shoji responded that he needed to prove his usefulness, glancing at me as I observed them quietly. Jiro commented that I would be lucky to even get chosen. Uraraka suddenly declared her determination to give her best. I walked up behind her, interrupting her enthusiasm by saying I was trying to take a nap and that she should keep it down or risk waking me up. She looked at me in surprise before I headed toward the door. In the halls, Ida questioned why I was following him and Uraraka. I explained that I felt oddly comfortable around them. I then asked Uraraka why she wanted to become a pro hero. She hesitated before admitting that money was a significant motivation, which surprised me. She felt embarrassed, especially compared to Ida, who had noble intentions. Uraraka revealed that her family owned a construction company but was struggling, which made her feel guilty for wanting to earn money as a hero. Ida pointed out that with Uraraka's quirk, she could help cut costs in construction by making materials float, eliminating the need for heavy machinery. Uraraka expressed her determination to become a hero so her parents could relax. Just then, All Might appeared, pointing at me and calling me young Ori. I felt irritated and asked what he wanted. He suggested we have lunch together, but I declined. Ida was confused about my refusal, and I explained that All Might had done something he wouldn't understand. All Might then requested to speak with me, and I reluctantly approached him. In the lounge, I confronted All Might, demanding to know how he knew my name. He explained that he had looked through my files and recognized my name from a previous encounter. I confirmed that I remembered what he had said about not being able to be a hero without a quirk. He then shared that he had suffered an injury during a fight, which limited his quirk usage, suggesting that we had something in common. I expressed that I had given up on that life months ago. All Might shifted the conversation to the upcoming sports festival, asking if I could participate. I acknowledged that my body was different now and decided I would attend. Before leaving, I warned him not to reveal my identity, or I would have to leave. As I turned off the light with my tail, I disappeared. After lunch with Class 1A, I lay in a corner, keeping one eye open while my classmates stared at the school outside the door. Ida inquired about the purpose of the other class's visit. Baku, annoyed, stated they were inspecting the competition after surviving a villain attack. A tired boy with purple hair remarked on the arrogance of Class A, which prompted me to stand behind Baku and comment on the absurdity of someone getting into the hero course without training. The boy, Shinso, implied I was a freak, and my eyes glowed red as I challenged him, wrapping my tail around him. I warned him that I could easily defeat him but reminded him that heroes don't act that way. Just then, Mei pushed through the crowd, calling my name. She noted that my anger levels were high and urged me to calm down. I instructed Ida to find Aizawa to clear out the crowd. As the students dispersed, Shinso remained speechless. I warned him to leave or face consequences, and he eventually walked away. I reassured my classmates not to let others get to them as I exited, leaving them uncertain whether to feel scared or grateful. The next day at UA, reporters waited to interview students. One commented on the lengthy security inspection, while another explained that caution was necessary after the recent villain attack. They noted that controversy could boost ratings, especially with Class 1A being the main attraction. In the waiting room, Mina expressed disappointment about not being able to wear her costume, while Ojiro reminded her of the need for fairness. Sato wondered about the preliminary event, and Toko encouraged everyone to adapt to whatever came their way. As the door opened, Ida announced it was almost time to go. I lay there, eyes closed, when Todoroki approached me, claiming he was more capable than I was. I stood up, towering over him, and whispered that he didn't intimidate me. He attempted to push my chest, but I grabbed his wrist, warning him not to provoke me like the villain from the USJ incident. Todoroki declared he would defeat me, prompting Kami to question why a top student was starting a fight. Kira placed a hand on Shoto's shoulder, but Shoto pushed it away, expressing his frustration. He pulled his arm back, revealing deep scratch marks. Kira acknowledged Shoto's superior abilities, but Shoto dismissed the compliment, focusing instead on the competition ahead. Kira attempted to encourage him, but was interrupted as Shoto declared his determination to aim for victory, capturing the attention of those around them. Present Mike announced the start of the UA Sports Festival, a highly anticipated event where first-year students would showcase their skills. The atmosphere was electric as Class 1A stepped out from the tunnel, ready to compete. Ida expressed his hopes of performing well in front of the crowd, emphasizing the importance of this event in their training to become heroes. Kira felt a mix of nerves and excitement, while Bakugo was purely thrilled by the challenge ahead. Present Mike continued to introduce the various classes, highlighting the talent present, including Class 1B and the support courses. In the center of the stadium, Midnight stood on a pedestal, ready to lead the players' pledge. The students were captivated by her presence, and Kira commented on her striking appearance. Midnight called forth Aizu Ori from Class 1A, drawing attention to his past achievements. Aizu felt a surge of determination as he stepped forward, ready to make his mark. As the event commenced, Midnight announced the first challenge, an obstacle race course spanning 4 kilometers. The rules allowed for freedom of strategy, as long as competitors stayed on course. With the signal to start, the students surged forward, pushing past one another. Aizu skillfully navigated the course, leaping off walls and avoiding obstacles. However, he slipped on ice, narrowly avoiding a collision with Todoroki, who was also racing ahead. Bakugo, fueled by his competitive spirit, propelled himself toward Todoroki, determined to assert his dominance. Aizu maintained his pace, using his claws to grip the icy surface. Mineta attempted to distract the others with his antics, but Aizu's focus remained sharp. Suddenly, a metal hand emerged from the ground, and Aizu reacted instinctively, slashing at the robot's head, feeling exhilarated by the challenge. Present Mike announced the emergence of the first major obstacle, Robo Inferno, and Aizu was taken aback by the formidable zero-pointers blocking their path. Momo expressed her disbelief at the scale of the challenge. As Todoroki unleashed a wave of ice to contain one of the zero-pointers, Aizu recognized the urgency and sprinted past him, aware that the ice wouldn't hold for long. Present Mike commented on their impressive teamwork as Aizu continued to evade the collapsing obstacles. As the race progressed, the tension heightened. A voice called out, alerting everyone to a student trapped beneath a fallen zero-pointer. Kirishima emerged, his body hardened and unyielding. Present Mike announced his resilience, highlighting his quirk. Tetsu also broke free from beneath the debris, showcasing his own strength. The camaraderie and determination of Class 1A shone through as they faced the challenges ahead, united in their goal to prove themselves as future heroes. To be continued. His body becomes like steel, serving as both a powerful weapon and a formidable shield, the narrator explains. Kiri, with small tears glistening on his face, expresses his frustration about their identical quirks. Tetsu, filled with determination, assures him that they will find a way. Kami reflects on the luck of others who can move on without feeling crushed. A student suggests they work together to find an escape route as hardened scales form on his arm. Bakugo propels himself into the air, reaching the top of the zero-pointer. The narrator notes that Bakugo from Class 1A is making a bold move, opting to go over instead of under. Shiro, using his tape quirk, follows suit, joined by Tokoyami and Dark Shadow. The narrator introduces Shiro Hanta, whose quirk allows him to emit a tape-like material from his elbow, enabling him to move and set traps. Tokoyami Fumikage is also introduced, with his quirk manifesting a shadow-like monster that acts as an extension of himself. As Bakugo jumps off the zero-pointer, Shiro and Tokoyami follow, eliciting cheers from the crowd. Snipe observes that the leading competitors are primarily from Class A, while AM acknowledges that other classes are not to be underestimated but may not last long. Aizawa comments on the experience some students gained during the USJ incident, noting how it has shaped their approach to the competition. Uraraka, with her fingers together, causes several robots to tumble to the ground. Aizawa remarks on how some students have faced their fears and are using their experiences to overcome hesitation. As Ida runs and kicks down a robot, Jiro takes down two with her earphone jacks, and Kama delivers a powerful shock to another. I race alongside Todoroki, contemplating my strategy as I avoid using my gas canisters to maintain my chances in the finals. Snipe emphasizes the importance of spotting the robot's weaknesses, while Mike announces the next challenge, warning about the dangers of the minefield ahead. Upon reaching the minefield, I express my disbelief at the final barrier. Mike explains that while the mines are not overly powerful, they are visually striking and should be approached with caution. I realize that by keeping my body weight minimal, I can navigate through without triggering the mines. As I carefully step forward, Todoroki moves slowly to avoid detection. Mike praises my balance as some students accidentally trigger a mine, sending them flying. Bakugo, undeterred, propels himself above the mines, declaring his intent to challenge Todoroki directly. As I continue, I hear several clicks before explosions send me crashing into Todoroki and Bakugo. Mike comments on the unexpected turn of events as I dig my claws into the ground, formulating a plan. My tail extends, wrapping around Bakugo and Todoroki, using their weight to propel myself forward past the minefield. Bakugo shouts in frustration as he and Todoroki quickly pursue me. Mike marvels at my ingenuity, while Aizawa acknowledges the students' self-motivation. I race into the tunnel, followed closely by Todoroki and Bakugo. Mike announces the first-year stage of the UA Sports Festival, highlighting the surprising developments of the race. As I enter the stadium, the cheers of the crowd fill me with joy, a rare moment of happiness. A few minutes later, Midnight announces the conclusion of the first game, revealing the results. 42 students have made it through the preliminary round, and she encourages those who didn't qualify to remain hopeful. She introduces the second event, the cavalry battle, explaining the rules and the point system based on the previous race's results, with the first place earning a staggering 10 million points. It's a survival game where the underdogs challenge the elite, Midnight announces with a mischievous grin. The excitement in the air is palpable, and I can't help but think that this will be an exhilarating experience. In a stadium, the atmosphere is charged as Midnight prepares to unveil the next event. The wheel spins and lands on cavalry battle. Midnight explains the rules. Participants must form teams of 2 to 4 members. The twist is that each player will receive points based on their previous performance, starting at 5 points for the last place and soaring to 10 million for the top spot. It's a thrilling competition where the underdogs can rise against the elite. The rules are straightforward. Each team's score is the sum of its members' points, and the rider will wear a headband displaying that score. Teams must grab each other's headbands to accumulate points, but stolen headbands must be worn visibly. Even if a team loses their headband or falls, they are not disqualified. Midnight warns that the game allows the use of quirks, but any malicious intent will result in immediate disqualification. Participants have 15 minutes to strategize and form their teams. As Class 1A gathers around Bakugo, Sato urges him to team up. Mina pleads for his partnership, but Bakugo is skeptical about their quirks. Kirishima, eager to join, reminds Bakugo of their class connection and offers his hardening ability as a sturdy support. Bakugo smirks, recognizing the potential in Kirishima's strength. Meanwhile, I sit quietly, contemplating my team. Points don't matter as much to me as finding the right people to work with. I overhear Ida expressing his desire for a strong leader, likely referring to Todoroki. My thoughts are interrupted when Mei approaches, asking to join my team with her gadgets. I can't refuse her enthusiasm. Uraraka rushes in, eager to join as well. I welcome them both, and we begin to strategize, considering how to maximize our strengths. As the timer counts down, Monoma observes that Class A seems to be gaining an advantage, questioning why Class B is content with their past performance. He rallies his classmates, determined to show Class A their true potential. When the horn signals the end of the preparation time, Midnight announces the start of the event. 12 cavalry teams line up, ready for battle. I carry my team like a 3-person horse, with Tokoyami at the front for defense, Mei managing gadgets, and Uraraka watching our back. Todoroki's team is also strategizing, assigning roles and discussing their attack plans. I listen intently as they prepare for the battle ahead. The excitement in the stadium builds as Midnight counts down to the start of the game. With a loud shout, the battle begins, and chaos erupts as teams charge at one another. I move swiftly, snatching headbands with ease, while my teammates work together to defend and support. The thrill of the competition fuels my determination as I navigate through the fray, ready to prove that the underdogs can rise to the challenge. After him, Toko urged Jiro to act. Jiro responded with determination, sending her iPhone jacks toward their target, but Dark Shadow swiftly knocked them away, frustrated by the interference. Toko praised Dark Shadow for keeping an eye on their surroundings. Gas masks, everyone! I instructed as the team donned their masks. I released a cloud of red smoke, obscuring our presence while some began to cough. I reassured them that it was just normal gas and not harmful. PM noted how quickly the chaos had unfolded, commenting on the visibility issues affecting the first-year students. Mei, can you get us above the smoke? I asked. Mei confirmed her ability and activated her air jetpack, lifting us above the haze. PM exclaimed about our position, but an explosion caught my attention, triggering memories of past trauma. I turned to see Baku soaring toward me, warning me not to feel safe. In a reflexive move, my tail struck his arm, leaving a mark, but he pressed on, intent on snatching my headband. Dark Shadow intervened, blocking Baku's explosive attack, but the strain was evident. PM reacted to the unfolding chaos, noting that Baku had been separated from his team, questioning the fairness of the situation. Zero used his tape to restrain Baku, and PM remarked on the intense competition for first place, highlighting the pro heroes watching the event unfold on television. Meanwhile, Monama seized Baku's headband, taunting him about Class A's simplicity. Baku, filled with rage, demanded the headband back, while Monama explained their strategic approach to the competition. He revealed that they had anticipated the qualifiers would allow many to advance, and they had studied their rivals closely. Baku, fueled by anger, declared a change in plans, vowing to take down their opponents. I reflected on Class B's long-term strategy, realizing they aimed to make a statement by challenging Class A's dominance. Just then, Todoroki's team emerged from the smoke, wearing their own gas masks, ready to confront us. PM announced that we were past the halfway point, and I took a deep breath, preparing to face Todoroki. Confidence surged within me as I acknowledged the challenge ahead. The battle was intensifying, and the stakes were higher than ever. At the sports festival, Toko noted the unexpected favor Todoroki seemed to show me. I urged our team to keep moving forward, directing Ida to lead the charge. Momo began creating tools to support us as we navigated the battlefield. I remained vigilant, spotting several groups charging at us. As Kama unleashed his electricity, I slashed the ground, creating a dust cloud that mitigated the impact of his attack. Dark Shadow managed to block the remaining electricity, but time was running out. With less than 6 minutes left, Todoroki froze a rock staff that Momo had created, immobilizing the other teams. Present Mike announced my absence from my group, causing panic among Todoroki's team. In a swift move, I snatched Todoroki's headband from behind, but he quickly turned to confront me. Todoroki grumbled and decided to take action, charging toward me. Toko attempted to restrain him, but Momo's creations thwarted Dark Shadow's attack. I recognized the threat posed by Yaoyorozu's creations and realized that Kaminari's lightning was a significant factor in our struggle. In a flashback, I recalled my conversation with Toko about her quirk and its limitations. I had encouraged her to focus on defense, knowing that her powers could be unpredictable in certain conditions. Returning to the present, I acknowledged the challenge Kaminari's lightning posed, noting that Dark Shadow was hesitating. As we reached the edge of the battlefield, I realized our options were limited, but I remained hopeful that our strategy could still succeed. No matter what, I will hold on to my 10 million, Bakugo thought. Minoma was getting on his nerves. A fellow student warned him not to irritate Bakugo too much, or they would all be in trouble. Minoma, however, continued to taunt, reminding everyone that those who incurred someone's hatred often faced retaliation. Kiri urged Bakugo to calm down, explaining that they couldn't regain their points if he didn't. Bakugo insisted he was calm, and Kiri encouraged him to move forward. Kiri charged at Minoma, shouting a fierce battle cry. Bakugo launched an explosion at Minoma, who skillfully dodged before countering with his own explosive attack. Minoma complimented Bakugo's quirk, but Bakugo was focused on the fight. Kiri was confused, realizing that Minoma seemed to have a similar quirk to Bakugo's. Bakugo retaliated with another explosion, hitting Minoma directly. Minoma acknowledged the power of Bakugo's quirk but claimed his own was superior, hardening his arm to block Bakugo's attack. The announcer explained Minoma's quirk, Copy, which allowed him to use another's quirk for 5 minutes after touching it, but he could only use one at a time. Minoma smugly remarked that even an idiot could understand that. Just then, a student from Class B attacked them with a white liquid. Minoma was surprised that they were being targeted. Another student urged them to keep running, as they needed to secure their points to be in the top 4. Bakugo yelled for them to hurry, while Kiri struggled to move, his foot stuck in the liquid. Mina quickly melted the substance with her quirk, urging them to move faster, as they were currently at 0 points. Minoma continued to taunt Bakugo, who declared that he was aiming for undeniable first place. The announcer informed everyone that there was only 1 minute left, and Todoroki was closing in on the 10 million points. However, Izumi had been evading him, which was frustrating for Todoroki. Todoroki's team attempted to advance, but Ida was blocking their path. Izumi silently observed, thinking about Todoroki's strategy. She noticed how he was keeping his distance and analyzing the situation. If she wanted to freeze their movements, she would have to be careful not to interfere with Ida. With less than a minute remaining, Ida prepared to make a decisive move. He announced that he would be counting on his teammates, and Izumi recognized his plan as the engines in his legs lit up. She whispered encouragement to her group, and they nodded in agreement. Ida burst forward, aiming for Izumi's headband, but she quickly wrapped her tail around his waist, lifting him off the ground. She smirked, knowing that Ida had been holding back his speed, and it was only a matter of time before he made his move. The announcer was astonished by the speed of the action, noting that Izumi was holding Todoroki in the air with her tail. Todoroki struggled to break free, but Izumi reminded him that he would be disqualified if he touched the ground without his team supporting him. The stakes were high, and Izumi was determined to maintain her grip on Todoroki. As the countdown continued, the announcer noted that Bakugo's team had moved up to third place, and Monoma's team was still holding on to fourth. Monoma was frustrated but reassured by his teammate that they were still in the game. They were determined to secure their position and aimed for first place. Bakugo, fueled by his competitive spirit, propelled himself toward Monoma's team, prompting Monoma to call for his teammate to create a barrier. The announcer explained that Tsuburaba's quirk allowed him to solidify air into walls, which Bakugo quickly broke through, grabbing several headbands in the process. As the other teams chased after Monoma, he felt the pressure mounting. Despite the chaos, he was determined to hold on to the last headband. Bakugo, meanwhile, was relentless in his pursuit of victory, using his quirk strategically to propel his team forward. The announcer highlighted Bakugo's determination and skill, noting that he was a perfectionist in his approach. With time running out, Bakugo's team secured their place in the rankings, and the competition intensified as they all fought for the top position. On to Izumi and Todoroki, Bakugo announced. With Izumi and Todoroki, Izumi clenched Todoroki's arm, feeling the pressure of the moment. Todoroki thought about the countdown, realizing time was running out. The announcer called for the countdown, and Bakugo propelled himself forward, but Izumi quickly tossed Todoroki back to his team before preparing to confront Bakugo. The announcer declared that time was up just as Bakugo landed face-first on the ground and Todoroki collided with his team. The second event, the cavalry battle, had concluded. Shiro rushed over to Bakugo, expressing concern for his well-being. Kira asked if he was all right, but Bakugo, frustrated, began hitting the ground. The announcer then revealed the rankings. First place went to Team Izumi, prompting Izumi to drop everyone off their back and stretch like a cat. Second place was awarded to Team Todoroki, with Momo commenting on the close call they had. Ida apologized for any trouble he caused, looking towards Izumi. Third place went to Team Bakugo, and Mina lamented how close they had come, while Shiro reassured her that third place was still commendable. Kira questioned if Bakugo would really agree with that as Bakugo sat on the ground, screaming in frustration. The announcer then expressed surprise at the fourth-place team, Team Shinso, noting their unexpected comeback. Izumi glared at Shinso, who had controlled Ojiro during the battle. Todoroki reflected on his own struggles, feeling overwhelmed and conflicted about his father's expectations. The announcer informed everyone that the afternoon event would resume in an hour after lunch and suggested going for lunch with Eraserhead. With the class, Azui expressed her vexation and congratulated Mina. Mina felt uncertain about her role in defending against Todoroki's ice attacks. Uraraka confronted Ida about his secret trick, to which Ida explained that he had used it incorrectly, wanting to battle with Izumi but ending up irritating him. Uraraka then wondered where Izumi was. With Izumi and Todoroki, Izumi asked what Todoroki wanted to discuss, sitting beside him. To be continued. At the stadium, the announcer stated that the afternoon event would resume after lunch. Izumi asked Todoroki what he wanted to talk about. Todoroki admitted he had felt overwhelmed, breaking his own promise. He reflected on how he had not used his abilities even when it would have been advantageous. As he lifted his hand to examine it, he noted that others, including Ida, Kaminari, Yaoyorozu, Tokoyami, and Uraraka, had not felt the same pressure he did. He felt like the only one who had been overpowered, having witnessed All Might's full power firsthand. Izumi, puzzled, asked what that meant. Todoroki explained that he sensed something similar from Izumi and questioned if Izumi was All Might's illegitimate child. Izumi was taken aback by the comment, trying to process the implication. Todoroki continued, stating that Izumi's physical strength and speed surpassed his own, allowing him to vanish from sight. He revealed that his father was Endeavor, a man driven by ambition who viewed All Might as a rival. Since Endeavor couldn't surpass All Might on his own, he resorted to a strategy involving quirk marriage, a practice aimed at strengthening abilities through forced unions. Todoroki expressed his disdain for being treated as a tool for his father's ambitions and recounted how his mother had suffered under the pressure of Endeavor's expectations. Izumi, overwhelmed by Todoroki's revelations, asked what he was trying to convey. Todoroki explained that he wanted to surpass All Might without relying on his father's quirk, expressing his determination to break free from that legacy. He apologized for taking up Izumi's time before walking away. Izumi reflected on Todoroki's struggles, realizing how foreign his world seemed. He thought about how Todoroki was unknowingly following in his father's footsteps, chasing someone he wanted to surpass. Izumi declared that he had been supported by others, just like in the cavalry battle. He wanted to be his own hero, strong enough to face anyone, and while his motives might seem trivial compared to Todoroki's, he was determined to protect those who had helped him. He resolved to rise above Todoroki, stating his intention to defeat him. Back in the stadium, the announcer declared that lunch break was over and announced the final event. For those who didn't qualify, there would be a recreational event for everyone to participate in, and cheerleaders from America had been brought in to liven things up. The announcer explained that 16 players from 4 teams would compete in a final stage tournament-style one-on-one battle. Kira expressed excitement at the prospect of standing on the stage he had seen on TV every year, while Mina inquired if it had been a tournament last year. Zero clarified that while the style might change, it was always a one-on-one battle. The announcer then stated that they would draw lots to determine the pairings, and the battles would commence after the recreational event. The 16 finalists could choose whether or not to participate in the recreation, allowing some to rest or save their strength. The announcer called for the first team to step forward. Ojiro expressed his desire to withdraw, and Ida anticipated this outcome, noting that the professionals would be watching. Ojiro admitted he barely remembered the cavalry battle until the end, likely due to the influence of a certain quirk. He glanced at a fatigued purple-haired boy, and I felt a surge of anger, my eyes glowing red. However, Mei stepped in front of me, urging me to calm down and take a deep breath. I reluctantly agreed but vowed to make him regret facing me if we fought. Ojiro acknowledged the significance of the opportunity but felt he couldn't stand by without understanding what had transpired. Hagakure reassured him that he was worrying too much and should focus on achieving good results in the finals. Mina chimed in, stating that she also felt the pressure, but Ojiro insisted it was about his pride. He then questioned why the girls were dressed as cheerleaders, causing them to feel embarrassed. Shota Nairenjiki from Class B also wished to withdraw for similar reasons, arguing that it undermined the spirit of the sports festival if someone who hadn't participated advanced. My claws dug into the ground in frustration. Kira remarked on the manliness of the situation, while PM noted something strange was happening. As Al mentioned, they would have to wait for the referee, Midnight, to make a decision. Midnight accepted the withdrawals and announced that the 2 participants to fill their spots would come from the 5th-place team in Kendo. Kendo argued that it should be Tetsu, who fought hard to maintain their position until the end, and her team agreed. Tetsu was surprised by her suggestion, but Kendo insisted it was the right thing to do. Midnight confirmed that Tetsu and Shiozaki would complete the 16 finalists, and the pairings were announced. Tetsu and Kira expressed their frustration at having to face each other, while Toko and Momo prepared for their match, each determined to give it their all. I looked at the scoreboard and saw that I was set to fight Shinso first. A smile crept across my face as I thought about breaking him. I was determined to show him my capabilities and make him regret challenging me. However, I also considered that if I won and Todoroki did as well, I would need to find a way to alleviate his emotional suffering. Shinso approached me and instinctively, my tail wrapped around his neck, warning him to keep his distance. After I released him, he stood up with renewed confidence, looking forward to the first round. I thought about how easily I could overpower him if I wanted to, but I watched him walk away instead. Todoroki was already contemplating his match against Zero, while Bakugo reacted in surprise to Uraraka's presence. Mei approached Ida, expressing her excitement and suggesting they take a break from the tournament to enjoy some recreation. The PM announced the first event, a scavenger hunt, and the participants scrambled to gather items from the crowd. As the chaos unfolded, I reflected on the different ways everyone was preparing for the tournament. Some strategized against their opponents, while others focused on maintaining their composure or calming their nerves. Time passed quickly as I lay next to May, resting my leg against hers. The PM rallied everyone for the final event, emphasizing the importance of relying on oneself and utilizing heart, technique, body, wisdom, and knowledge to rise to the top. May approached me, expressing her worries, but I reassured her with a gentle gesture that made her laugh. She urged me to be careful, and I promised I would. The anticipated final event was about to begin, with the first round featuring me, Ori Aizu from the Hero course, against Shinso Hitoshi from the Ordinary course. The rules were straightforward: either throw the opponent out of bounds or make them say, "I give up." The PM reminded everyone that life-threatening attacks would lead to disqualification, emphasizing that heroes fight villains with their fists. Shinso mused about the fight testing mental strength, but before he could finish his thought, my paw struck his face, sending him sprawling to the ground. The crowd gasped in shock at the sudden turn of events. To be continued. As the crowd watched in shock, PM urged everyone not to blink. Shinso stood up, holding his cheek and demanding to know why I wouldn't speak. I revealed my chest, showing that my voice box had been turned off, a result of Shinso's quirk. PM commented on the unusual situation, noting that Shinso, a student from the Ordinary course, was unable to use his quirk because of this. He explained that Shinso had failed the Hero course practical exam, which had favored students with strong physical quirks, while Aizu's origins remained a mystery, aside from his relationship with Hatsume. Shinso yelled about my strong quirk as I approached him, releasing gas from my mouth that filled the arena with red smoke. Confused and frightened, Shinso scanned the area, only to be met with a pair of glowing red eyes that vanished just as quickly. As the gas enveloped the arena, a horrifying scream echoed, sending shivers down the spines of those outside. May smirked, already aware of my transformation. In a flashback, May recalled a night when she went to get a snack, leaving me alone in the room. Upon returning, she found the room filled with red gas and saw me in a monstrous form. I asked her what was wrong, but she noticed the gas leaking from my chest. After a lengthy process of clearing the gas and fixing my fear canister, we settled down for the night, and I used my lavender-scented gas to help her relax. As I neared Shinso, my eerie appearance startled him, and I delivered a punch to his gut, sending him flying out of bounds. As he lay gasping for air, the gas dissipated, revealing my standard form once more. Midnight announced that Shinso was out of bounds, and I had advanced to the second round, prompting cheers from the crowd. PM declared that Aizu Ori from Class A was the one advancing, and Uraraka commented on the mix of coolness and creepiness of the event. May proudly claimed me as hers, surprising the class. Ida inquired if she knew what Shinso had seen, to which she replied that it was an unpleasant sight, suggesting that Shinso might have violent thoughts about me. Everyone except Bakugo seemed uneasy. PM encouraged the crowd to applaud the fighters, and I asked Shinso why he wanted to be a hero. He turned away, expressing that one cannot help what their heart desires. I reflected on how his feelings mirrored mine before my transformation. As Shinso walked toward the tunnel, students from the stands cheered him on, reminding him that he could always improve and that his quirk had potential against villains. Shinso vowed to not give up, determined to earn a place in the Hero course and become a greater hero. I felt a chill as he seemed to see through me, warning that keeping up defenses would only lead to downfall. I smirked, regaining control of myself as I walked away. In the stadium halls, Todoroki thought about my victory when he encountered Endeavor. Endeavor criticized him for not using his full potential, urging him to surpass All Might. Anger bubbled within Todoroki as he declared he would win using only his mother's power, refusing to rely on Endeavor's abilities. Endeavor warned him that he would soon reach his limits, unaware of the figure lurking in the shadows, observing their confrontation. Back at the Class 1A stands, May tackled me, causing us to tumble to the ground. She snuggled into my fur, and I affectionately kissed her on the head. I asked her why she wasn't with the support course, and she cheerfully replied that she wanted to watch with me and meet my friends. As I tried to rise, she wrapped her arms around my neck, holding me close. See. Walked over to Ida and Uraraka. He gently lifted Mei by the back of her shirt collar, setting her down on a chair while he took a seat on the floor due to his size. Fire blazed from the corner of the ring as the announcer called out, announcing the next match between Todoroki Shoto and Shiro Hanta. Shiro, who had performed impressively in the earlier events, was noted for his skills, but the announcer commented on his lack of flair. With the match underway, Shiro expressed his doubts about winning but was determined not to lose. He launched tape from his elbows, attempting to ensnare Todoroki and swing him out of bounds, a surprise tactic that could prove effective. However, Todoroki countered by unleashing ice from his feet, creating a massive ice wall that sent shockwaves through the stadium, leaving everyone in awe. Class 1A turned to see an ice spike dangerously close to him. As they feared for his safety, he calmly pulled the ice away, revealing cotton instead of blood. He requested Mei to fetch a sewing kit, and she quickly complied, astonished by the situation. Mei explained that his body was primarily made of cotton, while she began to stitch the hole in his neck. Meanwhile, Todoroki broke free from the frozen tape, and Shiro, encased in ice, struggled to move. The announcer declared Todoroki the victor as he approached Shiro, apologizing for going too far in the match. As Todoroki melted the ice he had created, a hint of sadness crossed his face, which the observer noted. The scene shifted to the stadium, where the announcer thanked everyone for their patience as the stage was prepared for the next match. The crowd erupted in cheers as the announcer introduced Shizuki Ibara from Class B, known for her strength, and Kaminari Genki, who was eager to impress. Shizuki interrupted the announcer, clarifying her intentions were not to harm her opponents but to bring relief to the people. Kaminari, captivated by Shizuki's beauty and strength, thought about how he wanted to take her out after the match. The announcer signaled the start of the battle, and Kaminari, surrounded by electricity, launched a powerful attack. However, Shizuki skillfully countered with a wall of vines that ensnared him, leading to his swift defeat. The announcer praised Shizuki's abilities, describing her quirk, which allowed her vines to grow back quickly. As the crowd cheered for her victory, the observer noted the unexpected outcome of the match. Amidst the excitement, he felt a sense of irritation as he watched Kaminari's defeat. Mei, noticing his frustration, tried to calm him down. As the next match was announced, he felt a mix of anticipation and concern for Mei, who was about to compete against Ida Tenya. The announcer highlighted Ida's determination and the unexpected support item he had received, which sparked confusion among the spectators. Ida explained his decision to accept the item, emphasizing the spirit of sportsmanship that Mei had shown. The atmosphere was charged with excitement as the matches continued, showcasing the strength and resolve of each competitor. Midnight granted permission for the match to begin. A sense of foreboding filled the air as I sighed, knowing that Mei didn't just share her inventions without a purpose. Kiri looked puzzled, asking for clarification. I explained that Mei always had a reason behind her actions. With the signal given, the fourth match commenced, and Ida charged at Mei. Mei's voice rang out, praising Ida's impressive acceleration through her microphone. Confused, PM noted her use of speakers, while Aizawa confirmed it. Mei continued, explaining how her machine enhanced the user's movement. I recalled a night when I had seen her working late, her dedication evident even then. In a flashback, I remembered approaching Mei as she slept at her desk. Gently, I lifted her from the chair, noticing an unfinished invitation before laying her next to me on the bed. Back in the present, Mei showcased her inventions, propelling herself with hydraulic bars attached to her waist. I realized she was demonstrating her creations to the support internship, admiring her clarity of purpose. PM narrated her quirk, revealing that she could see objects 5 kilometers away. Ida continued his charge, but Mei's invention allowed her to evade effortlessly, tripping him with a clever maneuver. She explained that her sensors enabled her to detect attacks from all directions. Ida struggled to regain his footing, and as he turned to face her again, Mei's invention released steam, allowing her to soar above him. She boasted about her electro shoes, which provided her with incredible agility. Ida, determined to counter her, aimed for her landing spot. However, as Mei descended, she produced a small gun that fired a net, ensnaring Ida. She explained that it was an arrest gun designed for capturing villains, showcasing her inventive spirit. After 10 minutes, Midnight announced that Mei had stepped out of bounds, granting Ida advancement to the next round. Mei playfully acknowledged her tactics, while I chuckled at her cleverness. As Uraraka walked away, the announcement for the 5th match began, featuring Aoyama against Ishido. From the stands, I commented on the absurdity of the situation, knowing Aoyama was unconscious and Ishido had easily won. Midnight confirmed Ishido's victory, and the 6th match was set to begin, featuring Tokoyami and Yayorozu. Ojiro asked for my thoughts on the upcoming match, and I explained the importance of timing against Tokoyami's Dark Shadow. Momo contemplated her strategy, knowing she needed to create a shield quickly to defend against his attacks. As the match started, Tokoyami commanded Dark Shadow to attack. Momo successfully blocked the initial strike but struggled to create a weapon as the relentless attacks continued. Eventually, she was declared out of bounds, and Tokoyami advanced to the next round. I reflected on Momo's overthinking, noting that in real battles, heroes often had to act without hesitation. The 7th match featured 2 students with similar quirks, Tetsu and Kirishima, as they charged at each other with determination. In the waiting room, Ida entered to find Uraraka looking anxious. Concerned, he asked about her furrowed brows, and she admitted to feeling nervous about her upcoming match against Bakugo. Ida reassured her, recalling how her strength inspired him. As the next match approached, Uraraka's focus shifted back to the table, her apprehension palpable. Even if it was Bakugo, he wouldn't unleash an all-out explosion against a girl, Ida thought. He believed that everyone was striving to be number one for their dreams, and no one would hold back, not even Bakugo. Uraraka had felt alone for most of her life, but since joining the class, she had received help from others, particularly Ida. That was why she wanted to assist him in return. She unzipped her chest and revealed a burnt notebook, explaining that it contained a strategy for using his quirk to win against Bakugo. She had been analyzing everyone in class and requested that he keep the notebook a secret, especially from Bakugo. Ida promised to keep it confidential and praised her for her initiative. Uraraka expressed her gratitude but declined his offer for assistance, acknowledging his talent. During the cavalry battle, she had thought it would be better to team up with a friend, but now she realized she had been relying too much on him. Everyone was working toward their futures, making them all rivals. She raised her thumb in determination, vowing to meet him in the final round. In the stadium, after what seemed like an endless fight, 2 students finally landed blows on each other, knocking themselves out. The announcer declared the match between Tetsu and Kirishima a draw. Midnight observed their battered bodies and announced that, in the case of a draw, a winner would be decided by arm wrestling. The pro heroes commented on the intensity of the match, expressing their admiration for such passionate fighters. As Tetsu and Kirishima were rolled away to recover, the next match was set to begin. The atmosphere grew tense as Uraraka approached the fighting ring. The announcer introduced the 8th and final match of the first round, featuring Bakugo Katsuki, a well-known fighter from the hero course, against Uraraka Ochako, who had garnered support from the audience. In a flashback, Aizu recalled Uraraka's determination when she first entered the USJ. She had shown incredible courage and seemed to improve rapidly. She had expressed her desire to meet him in the final round, and Aizu felt a sense of pride in her growth. Back in the present, the announcer called for the match to start. Bakugo taunted Uraraka, questioning her resolve. Ida, curious about the strategy Aizu had planned to share with Uraraka, asked him about it. Aizu held his chest where the notebook was hidden and explained that while Bakugo was strong, he had a predictable fighting style. He knew that if Uraraka could make Bakugo float, she could gain the upper hand. As the match commenced, Uraraka charged at Bakugo with determination. Bakugo responded with a fierce explosion, sending her reeling back. Ida called out her name, while others watched in concern. Uraraka, however, was not deterred. She quickly devised a plan, using her surroundings to her advantage. Despite Bakugo's relentless attacks, Uraraka continued to push forward, dodging explosions and maintaining her resolve. The audience began to boo Bakugo for his aggressive tactics against Uraraka, prompting a reaction from the pro-heroes. Aizawa, observing the match, reminded everyone that Bakugo was simply acknowledging Uraraka's strength and was not holding back in his efforts to win. Uraraka, feeling the pressure, expressed her gratitude to Bakugo for not underestimating her. As she prepared to execute her next move, the tension in the arena reached its peak, setting the stage for an unforgettable showdown. Uraraka looked up, a determined smirk on her face as she saw debris floating high above the stadium. She declared her intent to win, bringing her fingers together to make the debris fall. PM commented on the spectacle, while Aizawa noted that Baku seemed unaware of the impending danger. As Uraraka charged at Baku, she thought about the strategy she had devised. With so much debris around, she believed that whether he evaded or attacked, there would be an opening for her to close in. She was determined to win and be like everyone else. Baku, however, lifted his hands and unleashed a massive explosion into the sky, sending debris flying and knocking Uraraka back. He remarked on her association with a cat, implying he had anticipated her strategy. Uraraka felt fear at Baku's overwhelming power, realizing that her plan had been thwarted. PM praised Baku for his impressive blast, noting how he had broken through Uraraka's strategy. Observing Baku's strained hand from the blast surprised her, as he had never shown such a reaction before. Uraraka stood up, determined to continue the fight, while Baku encouraged her to bring it on. She recalled how Izuku would charge straight into battle without hesitation. Exhausted, she collapsed. PM announced that Uraraka had fallen, and she lamented her inability to move. It was clear to everyone that she had reached her limit. Mei, resting her head on a fluffy arm, noted that Uraraka's body was shutting down from exhaustion. Despite her condition, Uraraka insisted she could still fight, while Baku assumed a fighting stance, prepared for anything. A flashback revealed young Uraraka expressing her desire to help her parents. Her father encouraged her to pursue her dreams, suggesting that she could take them to Hawaii one day. Back in the present, Uraraka declared her aspiration to become a hero before passing out. Midnight approached, announcing that Uraraka was incapacitated and that Bakugo would advance to the next round. The crowd cheered as robots rolled away with Uraraka. PM expressed disappointment at the outcome, while Aizawa urged everyone to regroup for the next round. In the halls, I walked feeling down, recalling Uraraka's words from their last conversation about meeting in the final round. I turned to see Baku, who rudely challenged me. Ignoring his taunts, I noticed the bags under his eyes and walked away. Baku continued to berate me, calling Uraraka's strategy foolish and risky. In a moment of defiance, I wrapped my tail around his neck, lifting him slightly without choking him. He attempted to use his explosions to break free, but I tightened my grip, bringing our faces close together. I asserted that Uraraka had meticulously planned everything to defeat him and warned him to think carefully about who he bullied. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and when they returned, I was gone, leaving Baku in a state of panic. Back at the stadium, Siro commented on Baku's apparent distress, but only he and Kami noticed before Baku shot him a glare and sat down. In room 2, Uraraka reflected on her loss, admitting that overconfidence had led to her defeat. Despite her exhaustion, she smiled, grateful for the recovery girl's help, which had left her with only minor injuries. She recognized Baku's strength and resolved to work harder. Remembering Izuku's bravery at the USJ, she refused to let her loss bring her down. At the stadium, PM announced the results of the 7th match, which ended in a draw, and the anticipation for the arm wrestling match between Kirishima and Tetsu. The crowd erupted in cheers as Kirishima was declared the winner, advancing to the next round. Tetsu, on the ground, lamented his fatigue, while Kirishima congratulated him. In room 2, I stretched and prepared to leave, promising to do my best. I paused to listen to Uraraka's conversation with her father, who expressed pride in her performance despite her disappointment. He reassured her that this loss was not the end and encouraged her to continue pursuing her dreams. Uraraka, moved to tears, felt the weight of her desire to help her family. As I walked away from the door, I encountered Endeavor, who appeared smaller than I expected. He acknowledged my success and expressed interest in my quirk, which allowed me to withstand many attacks and control fear gas. And your speed rivals All Might, Endeavor remarked. He continued, explaining that he wanted to ensure Shoto surpassed All Might. As he walked away, he expressed his hope that the upcoming match would serve as a useful testing ground. I couldn't help but think to myself that Shoto must exceed All Might. I felt the need to assert that Shoto wasn't just a tool for Endeavor's ambitions. At the stadium, Uraraka's excitement was palpable as she eagerly awaited the match. Ida noticed her wide-eyed expression and expressed concern for her well-being, suggesting she see Recovery Girl. Uraraka reassured him that she had already done so but felt differently this time. She settled between Ida and Toko, while Mei busied herself in the corner of the stands. Ida acknowledged the tough match they had just witnessed and suggested they view it as a valuable experience, a sentiment echoed by Toko. The announcer energized the crowd, introducing the first match of the second round. He highlighted Todoroki Shoto, who had frozen the crowd with his earlier victory, and Ori Aizu, known for his speed. The crowd erupted in cheers as the match was set to begin. Todoroki acknowledged Aizu's presence, but Aizu remained unfazed, asserting that he wasn't intimidated. Ida turned to Tokoyami, asking for his thoughts on the match. Tokoyami speculated that it would depend on whether Aizu could outpace Todoroki's ice. 13 mentioned the earlier incident where a cat had jumped in to save Aizu and another boy, hinting at a shared connection between them. All Might noted that both competitors stood at the top of the sports festival, setting the stage for an epic showdown. As the match commenced, the announcer called for the start, and Todoroki prepared to unleash his ice attacks. Aizu anticipated the move, ready to counter. The moment the match began, Todoroki launched an ice attack, which Aizu narrowly avoided. Aizu retaliated with a powerful kick, pushing Todoroki back, who quickly created an ice barrier to prevent himself from going out of bounds. Aizu recognized Todoroki's strength, realizing that his opponent was formidable. All Might observed the match closely, noting Todoroki's resilience against Aizu's attacks. Aizu assessed the situation, understanding that he needed to rely on his agility to outmaneuver Todoroki's ice. As Todoroki turned to face Aizu, Aizu seized the opportunity to attack, but Todoroki instinctively acted a small ice wall. Aizu broke through, but Todoroki managed to grab his arm, freezing it momentarily. Aizu quickly retreated, aware of the stakes. Despite the setback, Aizu remained determined. He noticed Todoroki scaling an ice ramp and prepared to counter. With a swift move, Aizu used his tail to trip Todoroki, sending him crashing down. Aizu followed up with a punch that sent Todoroki near the boundary, but Todoroki created another ice wall just in time to stop himself from being knocked out. As Todoroki regained his footing, he acknowledged Aizu's strength and the intensity of the match. Aizu recognized that Todoroki's abilities were impressive, but he was determined not to be outdone. He noted Todoroki's shaking arm, realizing that his opponent was reaching his limits. Aizu broke the ice off his arm and charged at Todoroki, delivering a powerful punch that sent a gust of wind through the arena. Todoroki struggled to maintain his position, barely stopping short of the boundary line. Aizu confronted Todoroki, questioning his reluctance to use his full power. He reminded Todoroki that a quirk was an extension of physical ability and that there were limits to how much cold his body could endure. Aizu urged him to embrace his full potential, emphasizing that everyone was striving for victory and that winning with only half of one's strength was not enough. He challenged Todoroki, stating that he hadn't even managed to land a hit yet. "Come at me with all you've got?" Ori shouted, his eyes glowing crimson. Mei looked at everyone with a mix of concern and determination. She explained that Ori's body contained gas canisters, one of which acted like adrenaline. This could be dangerous, especially since the last time Ori used it, he had severely injured someone for hurting her. The others felt a chill as they processed her words. Todoroki, frustrated, questioned Ori's motives. He accused Ori of being manipulated by his father and charged at him. Ori braced himself, thinking that Todoroki was too exhausted to pose a threat. However, Todoroki landed a solid punch to Ori's gut, sending him staggering back. PM noted how impressive it was that Ori could still fight back despite his fatigue. As Todoroki unleashed a wave of ice, Ori managed to evade it, countering with a strike that sent Todoroki reeling. Ori felt his mind clouding but shook it off, pushing through the haze. Cementos expressed concern to Midnight, suggesting that Ori was overexerting himself, relying on adrenaline to fuel his fight. Aizawa observed the situation, contemplating Ori's reckless determination. Ori recognized the pain in Todoroki's eyes, understanding the struggles he faced. Todoroki questioned why Ori was pushing himself so hard. Ori replied that he wanted to meet the expectations of his past, to be a hero who could smile and inspire others. He struck Todoroki again, nearly collapsing but managing to stand tall. He urged Todoroki to stop being foolish and to truly commit to his goals. In a flashback, Todoroki recalled moments from his childhood. He remembered his father demanding strength, while his mother pleaded for compassion. He felt torn between the legacy of his family and his desire to forge his own path. Back in the present, Ori declared that he would not rely on his father's power. Aizu challenged him, pointing out that it was still his power. Todoroki, fueled by a mix of emotions, ignited his left side, embracing the flames. He realized that despite the conflict, he wanted to be a hero too. As the battle intensified, Ori felt the adrenaline coursing through him, pushing him to his limits. He knew that this could be detrimental to his body, but he trusted Mei's preparations to fix him afterward. Cementos and Midnight exchanged worried glances, knowing that the fight was reaching a critical point. When Todoroki unleashed a massive ice attack, Ori propelled himself into the air, narrowly avoiding it. His exoskeleton began to break down under the strain, but he pressed on, determined to reach Todoroki. In a final burst of speed, he tackled Todoroki out of the ring, causing a powerful gust of wind that knocked Midnight off her feet. As the dust settled, Ori lay on the ground, his exoskeleton damaged and his body burned. Todoroki was unconscious against the wall. Midnight rushed to check their pulses, unable to find Ori's. Just as she counted him out, Mei dashed forward, unzipping Ori's chest to reveal a metal container with his heart still beating inside. Relief washed over her as she realized he was still alive. But according to the sports festival rulebook, if both opponents go out of bounds at the same time, it results in a draw. If the opponents are severely injured, they cannot continue with the festival. Mei stated this, and Midnight nodded in agreement, confirming it was a draw, meaning there would be no winner to advance in the competition. 3 minutes later, Mei followed the nurse bots into the nurse's office. Recovery Girl instructed the robots to lay the injured student on the bed and noted that Mrs. Hatsum's replica resembled a human skeleton, but it was time to proceed with the treatment. To be continued. 3 hours later in the nurse's office, Aizu woke up, staring at the white ceiling. He turned his head, realizing it was almost evening. Sitting up in bed, he felt no pain. The last thing he remembered was tackling Todoroki out of the ring and into the wall. Hearing a groan from the bed next to him, he turned to see Todoroki with a bandage on his head. Aizu greeted him with a yawn. Todoroki looked over and smirked, which surprised Aizu. He commented on how he thought his injury was severe, but Aizu seemed happy. Aizu asked if Todoroki had hit his head too hard, to which Todoroki replied that he was just pleased about what Aizu had said. Aizu suggested they talk more when they were fully healed. The door opened, revealing Recovery Girl. She expressed relief that both were awake and informed them that the class was waiting for them in waiting room. She assured them she had done her best to heal them. Aizu thanked her and got up from the bed, surprised he could walk. As he approached the door, he felt a wave of nerves. At the waiting room door, Aizu stood hesitantly. Todoroki noticed and asked if something was wrong. Aizu shared that he had not had the best experiences in junior high after visiting the nurse's office, but he preferred not to discuss it. Todoroki understood and offered to go in first. He opened the door, and Aizu ducked under it, entering to be surrounded by their classmates, who were eager to ask questions. Mei rushed past the class, calling out to Aizu as she jumped into his arms, wrapping her arms around his neck. Aizu noticed she was crying and heard her express her fear that he wouldn't wake up when the first hour ended. He smiled and suggested Todoroki handle the questions while he took Mei home. Todoroki nodded, and Aizu walked out with Mei still clinging to him. At Mei's house, around 8:38 p.m., Aizu opened the door and stepped inside. The sun nearly set. He gently set Mei on her bed and walked to the bathroom, turning on the bathtub, which was larger than a typical one. After a minute, the tub was filled to a little above half. Aizu got in, soaking his body in the warm water. He soon heard a knock on the bathroom door and called out that it was open. As he closed his eyes to relax, he felt a small weight on his chest. Opening his eyes, he blushed upon seeing Mei lying on top of him. Feeling trapped in the situation, he noticed her moving closer, and his face heated up. After about 20 minutes, he carefully picked her up to get out of the tub. Wrapping a towel around Mei, he entered a room specially designed for him by Mei. He pressed a button, and air from the walls blew at him, helping to dry off the water on his body. 2 minutes later, he and Mei lay in bed together. He kissed her forehead and wished her good night. She returned the sentiment, and they both drifted off to sleep. To be continued. During the break after the sports festival, Aizu had grown accustomed to his new endoskeleton, and he thought it would be a normal day at school. However, that was not the case. On the train, he felt fortunate to find a spot that accommodated his size. A fellow student recognized him from the hero course and praised his performance in the sports festival, causing Aizu to blush slightly. Once off the train, he expressed his fatigue and desire for more sleep while walking in the rain. Ida, running past him in a raincoat and boots, greeted him and urged him to hurry, noting they were late. Aizu reminded Ida that they still had 5 minutes before the bell, but Ida insisted that UA students should arrive 10 minutes early. Inside the school, Aizu shook the water from his fur and began to speak to Ida about his brother, but Ida reassured him that his brother was fine and apologized for causing worry. In the classroom, the atmosphere buzzed with excitement as classmates discussed their newfound fame after being aired on TV. Aizu, trying to rest, was interrupted by Kami, who wanted to know if anyone recognized him. Aizu lifted his head from his nap and asked if they wanted an answer. Kami apologized and suggested he go back to sleep. Aizawa entered the room, greeting them. The class quickly settled into their seats. Tsuyu noted that Aizawa's bandages had come off, expressing relief. Aizawa informed them that today's Hero Informatics PRD would be special, causing the class to freeze in anticipation. He explained that they would be thinking of their hero names, which excited the class. As Aizawa activated his quirk, Aizu thought to himself about the implications of this related to the hero draft picks he had mentioned previously. The drafts begin in 2 to 3 years, after students have gained experience and are considered ready for the professional world. The calls received by first-year students indicate the interest that professionals have in their futures. Offers can be rescinded if interest wanes before graduation, Aizawa explains. Hokajira asks if the calls will come in their own bundle, to which Aizawa confirms. He clicks a button, and a hologram displays the number of offers for each student in Class A. Aizawa notes that usually, the offers are more evenly distributed, but this year, 2 students have drawn significant attention. Kami exclaims that they are on a different level. Jiro expresses confusion as she realizes the rankings are the opposite of the sports festival, while Kiri speculates that professionals might be intimidated by Aizu and Bakugo due to their performances in previous matches. Siro agrees, finding it understandable. Baku insists that professionals shouldn't be scared, while Momo praises Todoroki. Todoroki attributes his success to his father. Uraraka excitedly announces that she received an offer, shaking Ida in her enthusiasm. Aizawa informs them that regardless of offers, they will all participate in an internship with pro heroes. Curiosity piqued, Ida asks about the internship. Aizawa explains that they have already faced villains at USJ, but working alongside a pro will provide more effective training. Sato wonders if the hero names are part of the internship, and Uraraka expresses her excitement. Aizawa clarifies that the hero names are temporary, but if students are not serious about them, they may face consequences. Midnight enters, stating that she will evaluate their chosen names, as Aizawa cannot handle that task. In a flashback, a young present Mike snaps his fingers, asking Aizawa if he hasn't decided on a hero name. Aizawa, uninterested, replies that he doesn't care about names. Present Mike then declares him Eraserhead, to which Aizawa responds with indifference. Returning to the present, Aizawa explains that choosing a name represents their future and desired image, emphasizing that names and nature often align, like All Might. Baku hands a board to the narrator, who contemplates the need for a name. Minutes later, Midnight announces that they can present their names once finished. Kiri thinks about the confidence required for this task. Aoyama steps forward, declaring his name as A Shining Hero I Cannot Stop Twinkling. Some classmates think it's a bit much, and Midnight suggests he shorten it. Aoyama agrees, adjusting his name. Mina eagerly presents her name, Alien Queen, but Midnight expresses concern about its implications. Mina walks back to her seat, feeling discouraged. The class feels pressured to come up with funny names after the unusual ones. Tsuyu raises her hand, stating her name is Rainy Season Hero, Froppy, which Midnight finds adorable. Kiri confidently announces his name as Sturdy Hero, Red Riot, explaining it pays homage to the chivalrous hero, Crimson Riot. Midnight acknowledges the pressure that comes with such a name, but Kiri feels prepared. Kami realizes he hasn't thought of a name yet, and Jiro suggests Jamming Way, a clever play on words. Jiro teases Kami, prompting him to rush to the front and declare his name as Hearing Hero, Earphone Jack. Shoji presents Tentacle Hero, Tentacle, a pun on tentacles and tacos. Siro follows with Taping Hero, Cellophane, which Midnight appreciates for its clarity. Ojiro announces Martial Arts Hero, Tailman, while Sato presents Sweets Hero, Sugarman, which Midnight finds delightful. Mina calls out Pinky, and Kami suggests Stun Gun Hero, Charge Bolt, making a joke about needing to recharge his brain. Tor claims Stealth Hero, Invisible Girl, and Midnight encourages everyone to keep going. Momo states her name as Everything Hero, Creati, and Midnight praises her creativity. Shoto simply states his name, which Midnight confirms is acceptable. Toko introduces himself as Jet Black Hero, Tsukuyami, while Mineta presents Fresh-Picked Hero, Grape Juice, which Midnight finds quirky. Koji writes Petting Hero, Anima, and Midnight acknowledges it. Baku boldly declares King Explosion Murder, prompting Midnight to suggest he reconsider. The narrator facepalms at the name. Uraraka then presents her name, Uravity, which Midnight finds clever. Minutes later, Midnight notes that the process of choosing hero names is going smoother than expected. The remaining students are Bakugo, who needs to think of another name, Ida, and Ori. In a flashback, Ida recalls a conversation with his brother, who reveals he can no longer feel his legs. Ida, distressed, insists that his brother must continue to lead others. His brother asks Ida to carry on the Ingenium name for him. Back in the present, Ida hesitates as he prepares to write something but ultimately only writes his name on the board. Midnight asks if Ori is finished, to which Ida responds, probably. I had another name in mind, but this one will show that I'm not scary. I'm the naptime hero, Catnap. Midnight asked what my first idea was, and I replied that it was best for them to wait and see as I laid down at my desk. Aiza's desk was a bit taller than the others and didn't have a chair connected to it. As for his uniform, he only wore a tie since his body wasn't designed to wear shirts, making him appear quite bare. He was essentially a large purple cat, and while his mouth wasn't open all the time, he could move his jaw. In the staff room, Cementos announced that an offer for a first-year student had just come in. In his weaker form, asked for whom, and Cementos revealed it was for Aizu Ori. AM's curiosity piqued, and he expressed his surprise and confusion. Back in Class 1A, Baku shouted out a name, but Midnight corrected him, saying that now that everyone had their hero names, it was time to discuss internships. Aizawa explained that the internships would last 1 week. Those who received offers would get a separate list to choose from, while those without offers would select from a prepared list of 40 agencies that had agreed to take students. Each agency had different locations and specialties. Midnight added that some heroes, like 13, focused on saving people from accidents and disasters rather than fighting villains. Aizawa urged everyone to think carefully about their choices. Kiri expressed his desire to fight violent crimes in urban areas, while Tsu preferred something related to water disasters. Aizawa reminded them to turn in their choices by the end of the week, prompting Shiro to realize they only had 2 days left. Aizawa dismissed the class as he and Midnight walked out, leaving Tadu to ponder over his list before spotting his father's agency. During lunch break, Mina slumped over her desk and asked if everyone had decided on a pro agency. Mineta excitedly announced he had chosen a milady, prompting Aizu to facepalm at his obsession. Aiza mentioned having met many perverts in junior high, which led Mina to ask where he had attended school. He preferred not to say as he continued looking through the different agencies. Ojiro pointed out that Ashido had advanced quite far, so it was odd she hadn't received any offers, and Mina agreed. Uraraka approached Aizu to ask if he had made his decision. He admitted that none of the options stood out to him. Tsu remarked on his indecision, while Uraraka revealed she had already chosen her agency Battle Hero Gunhead's agency. Aizu expressed interest in Gunhead, a super martial artist, and Uraraka explained that while she eventually wanted to be a hero like 13, her experience fighting Bakugo at the sports festival made her realize the responsibilities that came with strength. After school, Uraraka suggested walking home together, but she stopped short when she saw Mei asleep on Aizu's back. Aizu explained that he was carrying her home since she had been working non-stop. Just then, M rushed in front of the door, announcing his unique form, but Aizu closed the door on him. Aiza decided to go out the window instead, prompting M to calm down and ask him to come along. In the bathroom hall, Mei was still asleep as AM got straight to the point, saying Aizu had received an offer from a hero. Aiza questioned what was so special about it, and AM revealed that the hero was Gran Torino, who had been his homeroom teacher at UA. Aiza's eyes widened in surprise as AM explained that Gran Torino saw great potential in him. Aizu felt annoyed at the idea, while AM expressed his fear about the offer, revealing that Gran Torino had retired long ago and that he had mentioned Aizu in a letter. M trembled as he held out a card, indicating how terrified he was of Gran Torino. Meanwhile, in the teacher's office, Aizawa discussed the importance of the internship decisions with Snipe, who noted that some students regretted their choices. Aizawa reflected on Ida's agency and the offers he had received, realizing the implications of the situation. At the entrance, Uraraka asked Aizu if he had made his choice. He hesitated, unsure if he should discuss it, while Mei continued to sleep on his back. Uraraka expressed concern for Mei, who had stayed up for 2 nights working on a project. Aizu confirmed he needed to get her home and noticed Ida had already changed shoes in his locker. As Aizu thought about Ida's brother and the infamous hero killer known as Stain, he felt a weight of unspoken words between them. The day of the internship approached, leaving him to wonder what Ida was doing. At the train station, Aizawa reminded everyone to have their costumes ready and warned them not to wear them in public. Mina cheerfully responded, but Aizawa corrected her to keep it brief. He urged them all to avoid being a burden to the heroes during their internships. Now go, Aizawa said, urging them to be safe. Mei expressed her concern for Aizu, who reassured her with a gentle kiss on her forehead. He then noticed Ida already walking away and called out to him, reminding him that if he ever felt hopeless, he should reach out because they were friends. Ida acknowledged this before continuing on his way. Aizu reflected on the moment, wishing he had been more insistent. He would later come to regret this day, feeling as if past emotions were resurfacing. In the next chapter, Aizawa informed the students that regardless of whether they received offers, they would be interning with pro heroes. He mentioned that Aizu had received an offer from Gran Torino, a former UA teacher who had only taught for a year and had been Aizawa's homeroom teacher. In Aizu's perspective, he introduced himself as a student from UA High School. Upon encountering a man on the ground, he initially thought he was dead, only to be surprised when the man lifted his head and explained he had simply fallen while carrying sausages. Aizu introduced himself formally, bowing his head. The man expressed a desire to eat, which confused Aizu. He excused himself to make a phone call, intending to update All Might on the man's condition. As he stepped outside, he heard the man examining Aizu's hero costume and demanding to see his speed to assess his strengths. Aizu thought to himself that this man seemed hopeless, but he was determined to focus on the task at hand. The man challenged Aizu to demonstrate his speed, claiming he had seen the UA Sports Festival on TV and found Aizu's abilities predictable. He expressed his frustration with All Might's teaching methods and offered to train Aizu, instructing him to wear his costume. Aizu examined the manual for his suit, which detailed its various functions designed by Mei. He felt grateful for the support items, acknowledging that this was his first battle with them. He prepared himself for the challenge ahead. As the training commenced, Aizu felt the pressure of the small space and worried about causing damage. The man, however, propelled himself around the room with incredible speed, leaving Aizu struggling to keep up. When a crash echoed through the space, Aizu turned to see the man had accidentally destroyed a microwave. The man criticized Aizu for not recognizing his true abilities and hinted at a greater potential that Aizu could have had. Aizu was determined to understand the man's quirk and strategized on how to counter his movements. He activated his wristband, which formed metal claws, and prepared to defend himself. As the man approached, Aizu attempted to analyze and predict his movements, but the man easily dodged his attack, pinning Aizu down and pointing out his weaknesses. The man emphasized that while Aizu had speed, his mind needed to be as sharp. He challenged Aizu to find his own answers and left him in charge of cleaning while he went to buy food. Aizu was left pondering the meaning of one for all. Meanwhile, in Hosa City, Ida noted the busy atmosphere and the importance of patrolling the streets to suppress crime. Pro-Hero Manual expressed surprise at Ida's presence, suggesting he could have received offers from more capable heroes. Ida remained determined to pursue the elusive hero killer, undeterred by the challenges ahead. Ida could not forgive him. In the lair of the League of Villains, Stain listened as Shigaraki made his proposal. Shigaraki expressed his desire to join forces, revealing his intention to take down All Might and eradicate everything he despised, including certain individuals. He held up a picture of Izuku Midoriya, showcasing his disdain. Stain, unimpressed, reflected on Shigaraki's motivations. He found it foolish to take an interest in someone like Shigaraki, who embodied everything he detested. Stain questioned the purpose of killing without a strong conviction, preparing to draw his swords in response to the villain's reckless ambitions. Kurojiiri interjected, reminding Stain of his role in guiding Shigaraki's growth. He noted that it was essential for Shigaraki to confront his own flaws and learn from them, emphasizing that true education comes from personal discovery. An unknown voice from a computer agreed, reinforcing the idea that Shigaraki needed to navigate his own path. As the tension in the room escalated, the stakes became clearer. With Aizu, he reflected on his current state. His mind felt out of sync, and he realized he needed to train his thoughts to match his movements. He unzipped his chest and retrieved his old, burnt notebook, determined to improve himself. Dipping his claw into ink, he began to write about a flexible yet suppressed mind he had observed during the sports festival. He pondered on Tashinori, questioning what had held him back. At the best genist agency in central Tokyo, Bakugo confronted his new mentor. The agency's head expressed his skepticism, stating that Bakugo had chosen him because of his status as one of the top 5 heroes. Bakugo, confused and annoyed, pointed out that it was the agency that had made the offer. The head acknowledged Bakugo's talent and potential but warned him about his fatal flaw, his belief in his superiority, which often overshadowed his image. He emphasized the importance of self-awareness and control, stating that he would guide Bakugo to become an exemplary hero. Meanwhile, Kirishima and Tetsu were surprised to see each other. They had both received offers and were eager to begin their training. The fourth kind praised their bravery at the sports festival but reminded them that being a hero required more than just strength. He would share his experience with them, emphasizing the need for proper manners and understanding their roles as civil servants. At the Gunhead Agency, Uraraka learned about the basic goals of heroes: controlling crime and responding to emergencies. Gunhead explained the process of receiving requests and filing reports, and Uraraka was pleasantly surprised by his friendly demeanor. At Iwabami's agency, the Snake Hero discussed the allowance for heroes to have side jobs, sharing her plans for a commercial shoot. Kendo expressed her desire for more action, while Iwabami encouraged them to appreciate the wisdom she had to offer. She revealed her reasons for choosing them, highlighting their potential and their charm. On the street with death arms, Jiro learned the importance of constant practice and training, even while on patrol. She jogged alongside him, finding the training to be more challenging than she had anticipated. With MT Lady, Mineta discovered the value of patience while waiting for rescue calls. As he vacuumed, he felt frustrated that this was not the kind of training he had envisioned. At Endeavor's agency, Shoto faced his father, who insisted he was ready to embrace the path of a hero. Shoto firmly stated his intention to forge his own future, but his father urged him to prepare for an outing that would reveal the true meaning of being a hero. Back with Aizu, he observed Gran Torino snoring, feeling frustrated that their first day of training had been so unproductive. He realized he needed to enhance his control over his senses to match his speed. With Bakugo's natural ability to keep up, Aizu felt the pressure to improve. He had devised a training setup involving a motor and ropes to help him practice, determined to master his powers. The motor started at a low speed as the can spun around. The protagonist easily dodged them, feeling confident and thinking it was too easy. However, when the speed increased, they were unexpectedly smacked across the face and fell next to a couple walking by. The couple, startled, called out in alarm and ran away. The protagonist wondered if they really looked that intimidating before getting back up. The next morning, Gran Torino noticed the protagonist looking worn out and asked what was wrong. The protagonist explained that they had been training alone the previous day, trying to keep up with spinning paint cans, but it hadn't gone well. Their face was dirty, a testament to their efforts. Gran Torino reassured them that it was their first attempt, and such challenges were expected in training. He shared that he had faced similar difficulties but improved with time. Just then, the doorbell rang, and a DLVI man announced a package. Gran Torino offered to handle it, and the protagonist was surprised to find a microwave inside the box. Gran Torino explained that his old one had broken, prompting the purchase of a new one. The protagonist found it hard to tell if he was serious or joking. Gran Torino suggested they eat some of the frozen food he had bought, but the protagonist pointed out that all he had purchased was dessert. Gran Torino simply stated that he enjoyed the finer things in life. Once the food was ready, the protagonist placed it in front of Gran Torino, who eagerly admired the steaming meal. The protagonist, feeling the pressure of time, wondered what to focus on. Gran Torino, noticing the protagonist's expression, teased them about looking glum. The protagonist clarified that they were not entirely feline but still human, and everything felt complicated. As Gran Torino enjoyed his food, he encouraged the protagonist not to overthink things. The protagonist realized that if they let go of their thoughts, their instincts could guide them. Sitting down in the middle of the room, they closed their eyes, allowing their mind to rest and their body to take control. Gran Torino observed this transformation with intrigue. Without warning, Gran Torino attempted to kick the protagonist in the face, but they swiftly tilted their head to dodge. Gran Torino stood in front of them and asked if they could move in this state. The protagonist, unsure, expressed their hesitation. Gran Torino challenged them to give it a try, and they accepted, ready for a standoff. In Gran Torino's home, he instructed the protagonist to keep their mind blank and their body active. If they could move while maintaining this state, they would reach a new level of skill. Gran Torino set a timer for 3 minutes and explained that he would try to hit the protagonist 5 times. If they could grab him or withstand his attacks for the full duration, it would be a significant achievement. As Gran Torino bolted around, the protagonist prepared themselves. Gran Torino attacked from behind, but the protagonist spun around, attempting to grab his leg. Gran Torino evaded the attempt, encouraging them to be faster. The protagonist's instincts kicked in, and they propelled themselves after him. Gran Torino turned and launched an attack, clipping the protagonist's cheek. They retaliated, swinging their leg and striking Gran Torino in the gut, sending him toward the ceiling. The protagonist snapped out of their concentration and caught Gran Torino as he fell. Gran Torino, surprised, kicked the protagonist in the head, sending them crashing against the wall. Lying on the ground, the protagonist questioned if they had succeeded. Gran Torino, holding his stomach, noted that it had only been 2 minutes, and the protagonist had managed to land a hit. He acknowledged their growth since the previous day but emphasized that they still needed to build strength. The protagonist smiled, feeling encouraged. Gran Torino insisted that there was no time to rest and that they needed to continue training. The protagonist stood at attention, eager to know what was next. Gran Torino reminded them that they hadn't had breakfast yet and suggested they heat up the pastries. However, when he noticed the pastries on the ground, he exclaimed in dismay that they were ruined. The protagonist quickly sprinted out the door to buy more. Meanwhile, at Gunhead's agency, Uraraka and others practiced their punches, emphasizing the importance of focusing on each movement. Gunhead encouraged them to remember that basic physical strength was crucial. At Fourth Kind's agency, Kirishima and Tetsu faced the frustration of their mentor, who criticized their tea-making skills. Despite the reprimands, they used their quirks to soften the blows from Fourth Kind's punches, grateful for their abilities. At Best Jeanist agency, the focus was on the importance of a hero's presence. Best Jeanist emphasized that a hero must not only be capable but also exude elegance in their appearance, speech, and actions, finishing with a perfect hairstyle for his sidekick. The training and challenges continued, each character growing stronger in their own way. I came to the wrong hero agency, I thought as my hair poofed back up. Momo stood at the pro-hero Uwabami agency, watching as cameramen snapped pictures of Uwabami. After the photo shoot, Uwabami was scheduled to be a guest on a radio show, followed by a quick magazine interview. Momo read Uwabami's schedule and remarked that it felt like they were her entourage rather than her interns. Kendo agreed, expressing that this was part of the hero lifestyle, unavoidable in their era. Momo closed the book, contemplating the lessons they might be missing, while Kendo thought about how Uwabami seemed to be in denial. At All Might welcomed Tsukachi, who had arrived unexpectedly. All Might set a teacup on the table and asked about the investigation. Tsukachi explained that several villains had attacked the USJ, but they were puzzled by one in particular, the one All Might had fought, known as Nomu. All Might recalled the fight, and Tsukachi shared that they had conducted tests on Nomu's DNA. Tsukachi clarified that he wasn't asking for All Might's help with the case, as it was a leak, but felt it necessary to inform him. They had discovered that Nomu couldn't speak and showed no reactions, as if he couldn't think for himself. His identity was revealed to be that of a low-level thug with a history of assault and extortion. Tsukachi pushed a paper across the table showing a man with puffy lips and explained that Nomu had been drastically altered. The analysis revealed 4 different people's DNA within Nomu. Tsukachi speculated that someone had combined multiple DNA strands to create Nomu, raising questions about his humanity. The transformation was attributed to drags and unknown methods, allowing him to hold multiple quirks simultaneously. Tsukachi expressed concern over Nomu's DNA, noting that typically, a person shouldn't possess more than one quirk unless it was fully integrated into their body. All Might's eyes widened in fear as he realized the implications of Tsukachi's findings, standing up in shock. Tsukachi believed it was a reasonable conclusion and felt it was crucial to inform All Might immediately. All Might, filled with anger, looked out the window, struggling to accept the possibility that the mastermind might be back. In an unknown building, Shigaraki found himself confronted by the hero killer, Stain, who challenged his commitment to the League. Stain held him down with knives, asserting that without conviction and desire, one would remain an aimless weakling. Shigaraki, in pain, attempted to respond but found himself unable to move due to Stain's quirk. Stain criticized the concept of heroism in society, declaring that it had lost its meaning, overrun by fakes and criminals. As he moved to cut Shigaraki's neck, Shigaraki grabbed the knife, stopping it just in time. He warned Stain that if he touched him, he would face dire consequences. Shigaraki expressed his desire to destroy All Might, vowing to crush the symbol of peace that society revered. As Shigaraki's injuries began to heal, he remarked on Stain's reckless behavior with knives, noting the absence of healers in their group. Stain acknowledged their opposing goals but found value in their encounter, sensing a warped desire within Shigaraki. He contemplated how that desire would manifest in the future, suggesting he might allow Shigaraki to grow, but warned that he would intervene if necessary. On the bullet train, Aizu sensed something was off as he heard a strange noise. His ears twitched and he looked around, questioning if something was wrong. The passenger caught his attention, claiming to have seen a building explode. As the sound grew closer, Aizu warned others that something was coming, but before he could finish, a creature with bluish-green skin, an exposed brain, and 4 eyes crashed into the side of the train, causing chaos. "I never want to see it again," Uraraka said, shivering at the thought. As I recalled the events, I realized, that's a Nomu. GT declared, urging everyone to stay back. He propelled himself over the crowd, delivering a powerful kick to the creature before launching off the wall and sending the Nomu flying out of the train. I rushed to the hole in the train, watching as GT hurled the Nomu into a distant building. A large fire erupted in the distance, and I wondered, what is happening? "Everyone please. Remain calm. Return to your seats. The villain is no longer here. More heroes will arrive soon, I'm sure," the train conductor announced, but a gust of wind swept past him as I stood at the hole, my cloak billowing. I declared my intent to pursue, keep them calm. "I'm going after him." I leaped off the train and sprinted away at full speed. There can't be that many people with wild eyes and brains spilling out. Maybe Nomu's brother? What are these creatures? No time for detours or stairs. I need to put my training to the test, I thought, leaping from one building to another. "Gran Torino, please be okay," I silently prayed. Meanwhile, Gran Torino faced a Nomu that had broken through a wall, chasing civilians. "A villain? Where are all the pros?" a man shouted, helping a lady up. The Nomu lunged to attack, but GT countered with a kick to its chest, bouncing off. I haven't fought this earnestly in years. Picking a fine time to patrol. "That's right. Bring it on, ugly," he taunted as the Nomu continued its pursuit. "He's fast. But not faster than me," GT thought, propelling himself toward the creature. Suddenly, flames swirled around the Nomu, and GT halted just in time to avoid the fire. I was looking for the elusive hero killer, but this creature will have to do. "Thanks, old-timer. I can handle this from here," the number 2 hero said confidently. "It's you," GT replied, surprised. "Why is he in Hosu?" a civilian wondered aloud. "Isn't it obvious?" "I came because I'm a hero," Endeavor smirked. As I rushed past confused and scared civilians, I thought, they're probably at the center of this chaos. Why does that guy look like the Nomu Uraraka described? They said that guy had the same speed and strength as All Might using 100%. It won't just be Gran Torino in trouble, but the entire city. That includes Ida. He's interning here. What do I do? Come on, think. How do I be the best hero right now? I called out for Tenya, but before I could find him, a small bus was thrown, landing on a car and exploding. My eyes widened as I saw 2 other Nomus overpowering the heroes. What are these things? I thought, noticing a bull-like hero ripping a fire hydrant from the ground as water sprayed everywhere. "Manual! Stop the fire!" the bull hero shouted, and Manual controlled the water to extinguish the flames. "That's Manual, the normal hero. Ida's at his agency," I realized, rushing to him. "Why did you run off by yourself? Were you Tenya?" "Damn it," Manual said, focusing on the fire. I halted, noticing a white dot in the abyss surrounding me. The dot shrank. "Don't tell me Ida." "Hosu City. Guys who look like Nomu." "Ida." Where the hero killer attacked. This idiot is after the hero killer. I thought before sprinting off. On a water tower, Shigaraki observed the chaos. "Nomus makes such great playthings," he remarked. Kurogiri asked if he wouldn't join the fight. "Don't be stupid. My arm is still healing. That's why I brought those pets with us," he replied, holding his aching arm. In a flashback, he recalled asking the master how many Nomus were ready. The master responded that 6 had been adjusted, though not as strong as the one from the USJ attack. "Give them to me," Shigaraki insisted, annoyed. "Why?" the master asked. "Because I don't like that arrogant hero killer you brought in." "It's my right to destroy anything I don't like, right?" he said, irritated. The master reluctantly agreed but limited him to 3, suggesting he use it as a learning experience. Shigaraki laughed. "Once this night is over, the world will have forgotten you ever existed, hero killer." With Ida and Stain, the villain pointed his sword at me, asking, "A child wearing a suit. Who are you?" I declared, "I am the brother of an incredible hero you attacked. He's the best older brother anyone could hope for. I have come to stop you because he can't anymore. You're going to remember my name for as long as you live. I am Ingenium, and I will defeat you. That's a promise." Stain responded, "Then so be it. Die." I shouted for Tensei as I attempted to kick him. "Ingenium. So you're brothers?" I let him live so he could spread the good word. "Word of me," Stain said, dodging my kick and retaliating with a strike that sent me to the ground. "You're a weakling." Just like he was, Stain taunted, stabbing my arm. "You aren't heroes. You have no right to be called that. Both of you are nothing but fakes." I felt a surge of anger and sadness as I replied, "Shut up, villain. You damaged his spine and paralyzed him from the waist down. He'll never be able to work as a pro hero again. My brother was incredible, a caring person who saved many lives. Someone people look up to. You had no right to take that away from him." In another flashback, I remembered my father saying, "Tensei, I'm so proud of you. You've become independent at a very young age with many sidekicks following you. That's no easy feat in these times." Tensei replied, "Nah, they're not followers. It's the opposite, Det. They support me because I'm not good on my own. I need their support. Of course, I'm working hard so I can return the favor." The young boy reflected on his brother's words, feeling inspired. His brother had always been his hero, and he dreamed of becoming a professional hero himself one day. But now, as he lay on the ground, he felt a surge of anger. He vowed that he wouldn't forgive the one who had hurt his brother. With tears in his eyes, he struggled to rise, shouting that the enemy should be more concerned about saving the victim instead of being consumed by revenge. The enemy, Stain, taunted him, claiming that his selfish desire for vengeance had blinded him to the true meaning of being a hero. As Stain prepared to strike, the boy felt his body betray him. Unable to move, he sensed death looming over him, but he refused to accept it. He shouted that Stain was nothing more than a criminal who had harmed his brother. Just then, Stain paused, his attention drawn to the alleyway. A purple blur rushed in, delivering a powerful double kick to Stain, sending him stumbling back. The boy recognized the figure as Aizu, a large cat-like creature. Aizu scolded him for putting himself in danger, expressing annoyance but quickly shifting to confidence. A few moments earlier, Aizu had been deep in thought, worried about the connection between the hero killer and the League of Villains. He had raced through the alleys, realizing that the hero killer was likely in the city, especially since Ida had recklessly pursued him. When Aizu spotted Stain preparing to attack Ida, he sprang into action, using his speed to intervene. Stain appeared surprised to see Aizu, who quickly instructed Ida to get up and leave. Ida struggled, revealing that he couldn't move due to Stain's quirk. Aizu recalled hearing that victims of Stain's attacks experienced paralysis from his cuts. As another hero appeared in the distance, Aizu felt the pressure mount. He needed to protect both Ida and the newcomer. Ida urged Aizu to stay out of it, but Aizu was frustrated by his friend's insistence. He questioned why Ida was trying to be a hero if he believed he should run away. Aizu took a fighting stance, determined to confront Stain. He recalled All Might's words about the essence of being a hero and prepared to act. As Aizu unleashed a red illusion gas, he dashed towards Stain, who attempted to counter but missed as Aizu vanished. Aizu aimed to strike, but Stain dodged, retaliating by severing Aizu's paw and sending him crashing against the wall. Stain liked his blade, realizing Aizu's body was not entirely organic. Aizu, in pain, thought about how Stain needed blood to activate his quirk. He quickly devised a plan, using his pendant to summon spider-like legs that began to reattach his severed paw. Stain acknowledged Aizu's potential, noting that he was different from the other so-called heroes. As Stain turned back to Ida, raising his sword, Aizu panicked, fearing for his friend's life. Just then, a burst of fire erupted, forcing Stain to dodge. Tadu had arrived, having received Aizu's message. Aizu felt relief wash over him, though he noted Tadu's unusual use of his left side. Tadu expressed frustration about the lack of details in Aizu's message, But together, they prepared to confront Stain, determined to protect their friends and uphold the true spirit of heroism. But Deku was not one to send cryptic messages without a reason. He sensed trouble and was asking for help. Everything was going to be okay. The pro-heroes would arrive any minute. Deku charged at Stain, unleashing flames from his arm, forcing Stain to dodge as the ice beneath them melted, causing Ida and the pro-hero to slide down next to him. Stain contemplated the situation, realizing that the time would soon be up for one of them. He acknowledged Deku's reputation but was determined to continue his deadly mission. Deku warned him not to let Stain get his blood, explaining that Stain could control his enemies by tasting their blood. Ida, struggling to reattach his arm, noted that Stain's blades were strong enough to cut through their defenses. Deku understood that keeping his distance was crucial. Suddenly, a small knife flew past Deku's face, leaving a minor cut on his cheek. Stain taunted Ida, suggesting that he once had good friends. As Stain attempted to strike Deku, he quickly created an ice barrier to block the attack. Deku realized that Stain had thrown his sword at the same time as the knife. Stain then lunged at Deku, aiming to lick his wound, but Deku ignited his left side, forcing Stain to retreat. A wave of ice followed, but Stain managed to slice through it with his sword, only for Deku to send another wave. Ida, frustrated, insisted that the fight was his alone, claiming his brother's legacy. However, Ida was reminded that he was now Ingenium and that revenge was not part of that identity. Deku noticed Stain swiftly cutting through the ice, and Stain pointed out Ida's mistake in blocking his own vision against a faster opponent. Deku challenged Stain, igniting his left side again, but was soon pierced by two small knives. Stain acknowledged Deku's skill but was intent on eliminating the pro-hero. Ida leaped into action, trying to claw at Stain, but his attacks were deflected. Realizing the futility of his claws, he stepped back to regroup with Deku. Ida speculated about Stain's quirk, suggesting it might have a time limit. The pro-hero, still immobilized, expressed his frustration at being unable to move. Stain, recovering from the force of their attacks, acknowledged their deductions. Present Mike explained Stain's quirk, Blood Curdle, which allowed him to freeze opponents for a limited time based on their blood type. Ida lamented that this knowledge didn't help their situation much. Deku assessed their options, noting that Stain was fast but not as quick as them, and they needed to avoid close combat until the pros arrived. Deku's injuries from the knives were significant, and Ida insisted on supporting him, activating his new nano claws. They both prepared for a fight, ready to protect the pro-hero. From Todoroki's perspective, he recognized the challenge of facing Stain 2 against 1. He worried about Ida, who was consumed by resentment since his brother's attack. He recalled a moment of vulnerability when he shared his past with someone who forgave him, urging him to move forward. This memory fueled his determination as he prepared to engage Stain. Aizu charged at Stain, but Stain dodged and countered with a spinning kick that sent him back. Todoroki used his ice to try and separate them, reflecting on his choice to learn from Endeavor, despite his father's flaws. He remembered a conversation with Endeavor about stopping the hero killer, acknowledging his father's instincts as a hero. As Todoroki unleashed a stream of fire at Stain, he realized he still needed guidance, just a few words to help him find his way. In Ida's perspective, he recalled a moment when Stain questioned his priorities, but Aizu had insisted on saving him. Deku stood ready to protect them, but Stain's fighting style had shifted, and Ida felt the pressure as Stain struck, chipping away at his defenses. Deku retaliated with fire, forcing Stain to dodge once more. Aizu activated his pendant to fix his leg as Deku urged him to run, his voice filled with urgency. Tears welled up in Aizu's eyes as he struggled to watch. Deku shouted that if Aizu wanted to make his brother proud, he needed to stand up and be Ingenium. With determination igniting within him, Deku unleashed ice at Stain, but the villain cut right through it. Deku's left side flared with flames as he declared that Aizu needed to become the hero his brother wanted him to be. Aizu, recalling his vow, began to move his fingers, ready to fight. In a flashback, Ida spoke about the turbo hero, Ingenium, in the cafeteria. He expressed pride in being the younger brother of such a renowned hero, who commanded respect and adhered to the hero code. Ida aspired to emulate him, flicking a switch in his chest to activate his energy supply while consuming shredded fruits. Back in the present, Deku shouted for Ida to stand up and embody Ingenium as he attacked Stain with ice. Stain easily cut through the ice, and Deku urged Ida to become the hero his brother would have wanted. Ida wrestled with his thoughts, questioning whether he could truly call himself a hero while his friends were in danger. Stain's taunts echoed in his mind, and as he attempted to shoot fire at Stain, the villain evaded the attack. Ida reflected on his desire for revenge and how it had blinded him to the needs of others. In another flashback, young Ida expressed his admiration for his brother Tensei, who explained his motivations for becoming a pro-hero. Tensei spoke of family legacy and the importance of helping others, emphasizing that being a hero was about selflessness. Ida admired his brother's dedication and felt a sense of responsibility to make him proud. Returning to the present, Stain dismissed Ida and Deku as fakes. Ida recognized the truth in Stain's words, feeling immature and inadequate compared to the heroes around him. As Stain dodged Deku's fire and ice attacks, Ida clenched his fist, determined to prove himself. He realized he needed to stand up and charge his quirk, vowing to live up to his brother's name. With a surge of energy, Ida shouted, "Recipro burst," and dashed toward Deku and Stain. He struck Stain's sword with a swift kick, following up with another kick that caught Stain off guard. Stain acknowledged Ida's speed, while Aizu cheered him on, despite his own struggles. Ida insisted that he would not allow his friends to suffer for him any longer. Stain, however, continued to belittle Ida, claiming that a person's true nature could not change so quickly. He labeled Ida a fraud, asserting that he was a sickness in society that tarnished the name of heroes. Aizu, irritated, dug his claws into the ground, refusing to let Stain's words sway him. Deku urged Ida not to listen to the villain's nonsense, reinforcing their resolve to fight for what was right. He was completely correct. There was no right to call himself a hero. Even so, there was no way he could back down. If he gave up now, the name Ingenium would die. Blood dripped down his arm as Stain charged at him, but Todoroki stepped in front, using his fire as a barrier. Pro-hero native, begging on the ground, urged them to flee, insisting that the hero killer was only after him and the kid in the white armor. Deku noted that something had clearly changed in Stain. He seemed rattled. Stain stood on his sword embedded in the wall, leaping away just as Deku sent a wave of ice toward him. Deku thought about Stain's quirk, realizing that while it wasn't especially powerful, its unpredictability due to blood type and its short duration made it challenging. Stain had to get in close to use it, and it must have been difficult for him to take on multiple opponents at once. Stain was desperate, trying to eliminate Ida and the other hero before the professionals arrived. Such tenacity impressed Deku as he watched Aizu's pendant finish repairing his leg. Aizu attempted to use his quirk, but it wasn't working. His engines were malfunctioning, and he wondered if he had broken something with the kick. He called out to Todoroki, asking if he could regulate his temperatures. Todoroki confirmed that he could manage it, though not well with his left side, while still trying to keep Stain at bay with his flames. Aizu requested Todoroki to freeze his leg without blocking the exhaust. Stain, frustrated, threw knives at Todoroki, but Aizu blocked them with his arm. Stain questioned why Aizu wouldn't stay down before using a larger knife to pin him to the ground. Deku stopped his fire to check on Aizu, who urged him to act quickly. Aizu felt a surge of energy as his pendant returned around his neck and concentrated, letting his body take control. As Todoroki froze around Aizu's leg, he grabbed the knife off his arm with his mouth. He thanked Todoroki and declared that he would fight, with or without his arms. Using his quirk at full strength, he propelled himself off the ground towards Stain, who was falling. Aizu bounded off the ground, shattering the ice beneath him as he raced towards Stain, ready to strike. They both thought that if they just used their legs, that would be enough to defeat Stain. Aizu struck Stain in the back of the head with his paw, followed by Aizu kicking Stain from behind. Gran Torino observed as a Nomu lunged to punch him, but he propelled himself above it, noting that while the creature was fast, it wasn't faster than him. The Nomu continued its pursuit of civilians, and he shouted at it to stop. Just as he propelled toward the Nomu, fire engulfed it, and he halted his advance. Pro-hero Endeavor appeared, confidently stating that he could handle things from there. Civilians were surprised to see him in Hosu, and he explained that it was because he was a hero. The flames on the Nomu extinguished, revealing burns on its body. Endeavor thought that his low-temperature warning shot usually knocked out opponents. Gran Torino sensed something was off as the Nomu released a wave of fire. He dodged, but Endeavor controlled the flames to avoid hitting him. Endeavor noted the Nomu's quirk of absorption and release, pointing out that it had still taken damage from his flames, which he found unimpressive. The Nomu's muscles began to grow, and Gran Torino warned Todoroki to be cautious, suspecting the creature had multiple quirks. Endeavor observed the Nomu's muscles stop growing before it bounced off the ground, realizing how it operated. Gran Torino noted that 2 bystanders had escaped, which was good. Endeavor raised his hand, and the Nomu opened its mouth, revealing strange tentacles. Gran Torino bounced off the ground and kicked the tentacles away before launching himself at the Nomu, delivering a swift double kick that smashed it into the ground. He remarked that he hadn't meant to damage the road, realizing he might be more out of practice than he thought. Endeavor complimented him on his performance, and they both noticed an explosion in the distance, indicating where the rest of the heroes were gathered. Gran Torino suggested they tie up the Nomu for the police to handle before going to assist the others. Endeavor recalled a flashback where he had warned Todoroki about trouble ahead, leading him to the battle scene. Todoroki's phone buzzed, and he checked it, realizing it was a message from Aizu. Frustrated, Endeavor turned to his son, who was already running off to respond to the situation. He was surprised by Todoroki's determination to handle things on his own. Back in the present, Aizu, Ida, and Todoroki worked together. Todoroki encouraged them to attack, and both Aizu and Ida struck Stain simultaneously. Todoroki prepared to unleash his fire, but Stain retaliated by slashing at Ida's arm. Ida declared his intention to defeat Stain, asserting that he was a hero. As Todoroki shot fire at Stain, Aizu wrapped his tail around him, preventing any further movement. Ida delivered a powerful kick, and as Aizu released his tail, Todoroki's flames hit Stain, roasting him. As they began to fall, Todoroki created a slide of ice for them to ride down. They landed, with Aizu's metal skull protecting him, but Ida was not as fortunate. Aizu urged Ida to stand up. "Keep fighting," Tadu urged, noticing Stain unconscious on the ground. He speculated that Stain must have a concussion from the kick to his head. Aizu stood up, stretching like a cat, and agreed that they should restrain Stain and move him to the street, suggesting they look for some rope. Tadu nodded, adding that they should also take away Stain's weapons, while Ida stared at them in disbelief. During the battle with the Nomus, a large Nomu attempted to punch a pro-hero. 2 ninja heroes jumped in, throwing shurikens that had little effect. A bull hero shouted for everyone to attack at once. As all the heroes leaped toward the Nomu, it smashed the ground, sending the pro-heroes flying and creating a cloud of dust that obscured their vision. One hero cursed his inability to see, while another called out, trying to locate the Nomu. As the dust settled, the Nomu loomed behind one of the heroes. Manuel yelled a warning just as the Nomu swung at Hero 1, but Endeavor intervened, punching the Nomu away, much to the surprise of the other heroes. As the Nomu regained its balance, its arm began to regenerate. Endeavor acknowledged this ability and charged at the creature, grabbing its head. He declared that he would see if the Nomu could recover from this, unleashing his fire, which turned blue as he incinerated the Nomu's head. The creature collapsed, and Endeavor noted that incinerated cells could not regenerate. Suddenly, a flying Nomu swooped down, carrying an unconscious pro-hero. Endeavor instructed any heroes without suitable quirks to assist on Iku Street in District 4, expressing uncertainty about the situation. As Endeavor sprinted after the flying Nomu, he threw a fireball, which the Nomu dodged. He acknowledged the Nomu's speed but remained determined. Endeavor leaped onto the side of a building, creating a fire arrow and launching it at the Nomu, hitting its face. The Nomu dropped the unconscious pro, and Endeavor caught him, vowing that the Nomu would not escape. Back with Aizu, Ida, and Tadu, Aizu asked Native if he could move. Native confirmed that he felt fine. Tadu noted their luck in finding something useful in a dumpster, while Ida insisted he could drag Stain from there. Aiza's tail wrapped around Stain, lifting him off the ground, but Aiza cautioned Ida about his injury before they began walking. Native expressed his regret for feeling useless during the fight, but Aiza reassured him that no one could have faced the hero killer alone, especially with his unusual quirk. Tadu pointed out that their victory was due to Stain's mistakes, as he had become desperate and overlooked Aiza's ability to repair his leg, which allowed Ida to land his final blow. As they exited the alley, Native urged them to get Stain to the police quickly. Aiza's eyes widened as he spotted Gran Torino, who appeared angry. Gran Torino scolded Aizu for not staying on the bullet train, but Aiza managed to catch his kick and land back on the ground. Aizu explained that he had to take action, and Tadu inquired about Gran Torino's identity. Aizu introduced him as his internship mentor and asked how he found them. Gran Torino revealed he had been sent by someone else and expressed relief that Aizu was unharmed. Aizu apologized, but his ears perked up at a sound that caught Tadu and Gran Torino's attention. A pro-hero rushed in, announcing that they had come in response to Endeavor's request for help, but were surprised to see 2 kids and a giant cat. Aizu suppressed the urge to retaliate against the pro. Another pro noted the severity of their injuries and promised to call for an ambulance. As they discussed the situation, pro-heroes gasped at the sight of Stain tied up, prompting Aizu to lower him to the ground while another pro called the police. Aizu checked on Native, who admitted to feeling dizzy. Tadu noted Ida's significant bleeding and reassured him that help was on the way. Ida expressed his guilt for their injuries, attributing his anger to the chaos of the situation. Aizu apologized for not recognizing Ida's anger sooner, feeling embarrassed. Tadu encouraged Ida to pull himself together, reminding him of his role as class representative, which Ida accepted. Aizu reflected on how their fight against the hero killer felt much longer than the 10 minutes it actually took. Suddenly, he noticed the source of the noise that had been bothering him, and Gran Torino caught on to Aizu's alarmed expression as a flying Nomu appeared around the corner. They shouted for everyone to get down, but it was too late. The Nomu grabbed Native with its claws. Panic ensued as everyone called out Native's name, and one pro noted the Nomu was bleeding, indicating it was trying to escape. Gran Torino worried that if the Nomu took Native too high, he wouldn't be able to reach him with his quirk. Aizu's ears twitched as he saw the hero killer freeing himself from the ropes, liking the Nomu's blood off a pro's face. The Nomu descended slowly. Stain proclaimed that the word hero had lost all meaning in society, declaring that fakes and criminals like them must be purged. In a flashback, Stain noted that he would deal with the noisy fool later. He then stated that everything he did was to create a stronger society, pulling the knife from the Nomu's head. Why did he have to go and take down that Manyu? And why is that cat here? Shiga felt a surge of frustration, scratching his neck as he expressed his anger. Things never seemed to go the way he wanted them to. Meanwhile, with the others, Pro 3 observed the situation and questioned if someone had just saved Native. Pro 4 pointed out that the individual had taken him hostage, while Pro 2 noted the lack of hesitation in the earlier confrontation. Pro 1 warned everyone to be on guard, signaling that a fight was imminent as they all assumed their fighting stances. Endeavor rushed in, questioning why they were standing around like fools and suggesting that the villain must have fled in that direction. Pro 3 expressed surprise at how quickly Endeavor had dealt with the rest. Endeavor acknowledged that things had gotten a bit rough at the end and suddenly noticed Stain. He urged Stain to release Native, his voice filled with anger. Stain, panting, acknowledged Endeavor, who prepared to unleash his flames. GT intervened, calling out to Todoroki to wait. As Stain released Native, his mask came off, causing everyone to freeze in fear. Stain proclaimed that he would expose the false heroes, declaring that the streets must run with the blood of hypocrites. He vowed to reclaim the title of hero, challenging anyone to stop him, while expressing his admiration for All Might as the only true hero worthy of the title. A wave of bloodlust emanated from him, instilling fear in everyone present, but soon that intensity faded. Endeavor remarked that it seemed Stain was out cold, and some, including Shiga, fell back in shock. It wasn't until later that Shiga learned what had transpired. A quirk hadn't been the downfall of the hero killer. Rather, a broken rib had pierced his lung. Stain hadn't managed to taste anyone's blood, yet in that moment, none of them could muster the courage to confront him. Only the hero killer seemed to have any fight left in him. To be continued. Chapter End. From the reporter's perspective, the helicopter hovered above a chaotic scene in Hosu City. The reporter communicated live to the studio, describing the unfolding situation. Large clouds of smoke and fire billowed from various locations below, raising questions about whether these were accidents or the result of villainous activity. With no clear information available, the station promised to keep viewers updated as the story developed. The reporter noticed something unusual and urged the cameraman to zoom in on a building with a water tower. Two figures were spotted on the rooftop, raising confusion about how they had gotten there. Shigaraki, observing through binoculars, felt a surge of anger as he watched his nomus being captured or defeated. Frustrated, he shattered the binoculars and declared it was time to leave. Kurojairi, appearing behind him, inquired about his satisfaction with the results, to which Shigaraki replied that it depended on the next day's headlines. Meanwhile, in a hospital, Aizu was confronted by Tadu, who asked if he had managed to sleep. Aizu expressed his annoyance at being stuck in the hospital, reflecting on the previous night's battle. Tadu acknowledged their success in their first encounter with a villain, despite Aizu's frustration over his temporary injury. Tadu reassured Aizu that he had played a crucial role in the fight, highlighting his bravery. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Pro-Hero Manuel and Gran Torino. Gran Torino noted that they were all awake and mentioned that he could scold them for hours but had a visitor, the chief of police, Kenji Tsuragami. Aizu felt a surge of anxiety at the mention of the chief, trying to suppress the instinct to flee. Kenji entered, instructing them to remain seated, which startled Aizu. He then acknowledged the students for their role in apprehending the hero killer, Stain, who was now in the hospital with serious injuries. Kenji explained the police department's stance on the use of quirks and the ethical responsibilities that came with them. He warned that the students, along with their supervisors, could face severe consequences for their actions. Tadu challenged Kenji's perspective, arguing that if Ida had not intervened, lives would have been lost. Kenji countered that breaking the law was not justified, further frustrating Tadu. The tension escalated as Tadu confronted Kenji, but Gran Torino intervened, advising Tadu to listen carefully. Kenji clarified that any punishment would only be necessary if the incident became public. He suggested that they could frame the narrative to portray Endeavor as the hero of the day, allowing the students to avoid repercussions. However, this would mean sacrificing any recognition for their bravery. Manuel acknowledged the need for accountability, and Ida took responsibility for his actions, apologizing for not listening. Aizu and Tadu followed suit, expressing their regrets. Kenji, bowing his head in gratitude, thanked them for their efforts, though Tadu remarked that he could have started with that. As the students reflected on their unexpected battle, they understood that while they had fought bravely, the consequences of their actions would linger long after their wounds had healed. In the outside world, people read newspapers reporting on the capture of Stain and the events of the Hosu riots, leaving many questions unanswered. Based on their distinctive appearance and the presence of two individuals captured by our reporter nearby, many are speculating that they are connected to the League of Villains that attacked the high school last month. The male reporter stated that the hero killer Stain had claimed many lives, more than any other criminal since All Might emerged on the scene. With his arrest, everyone in the country could rest a little easier that night, according to the female reporter, as a figure on the street watched before walking away. The seriously injured hero killer was currently receiving treatment at a hospital under heavy police guard. Officials were awaiting the recovery of several of his victims before further investigating the villain's motives. The male reporter emphasized that they were discussing a criminal who had left his mark on Japan, if not the world. The hero killer. Stain raised questions about his motives and what he hoped to gain. A podcast host invited listeners to share their thoughts on the matter, while a girl skipped through an abandoned warehouse, listening intently. The news lady reported live from Eloy Street in Hosu City, mentioning that the hero killer Stain was arrested by Endeavor just after 8 p.m. the previous night. Kuro turned off the TV, feeling frustrated by the constant coverage. Shiga expressed his annoyance, crumpling up a newspaper and tossing it aside, lamenting that not only had they not been forgotten, but they hadn't even made the front page. In a flashback, Shiga laughed menacingly, declaring that once the night was over, the world would have forgotten the heroes. Back in the present, he noted with irritation that they remained unrecognized. At the Best Jeanist Agency, Bakugo listened as BJ addressed the team about the incident in Hosu. He explained the connection between the hero killer Stain's arrest and the villains resembling Nomo from the UA attack. Concerned about the implications, BJ urged the heroes to remain calm and focused, reminding them that their duty was to protect others, not seek vengeance. As everyone dismissed, Bakugo felt annoyed at having to wear jeans and style his hair. At the Fourth Kind Agency, Kirishima was excited to share that Aizu had messaged him about a location in the middle of the action in Hosu. Tetsu warned him to put his phone down before they were late, but Kirishima insisted on replying. They both received a light reprimand from FK, who emphasized the importance of punctuality before leading them out to patrol. Meanwhile, Aizu returned to the room he shared with Ida and Todoroki, rubbing his ear after a conversation with Mei about his endoskeleton. Todoroki informed him that Ida had just received his test results, revealing potential permanent damage to his left hand. Ida explained that he had sustained severe injuries, particularly to his left arm, which might require nerve transplant surgery. He reflected on his encounter with the hero killer, admitting that his anger had clouded his judgment. Despite his feelings of hatred toward Stain, he acknowledged the truth in the villain's words and resolved to leave his hand as it was until he could truly call himself a hero. Aizu encouraged Ida to grow stronger together, while Todoroki expressed concern about his own involvement leading to others getting hurt. Ida laughed, lightening the mood, and Aizu joined in, finding humor in their situation. At UA, All Might received a phone call that startled him. Gran Torino expressed his frustration over Aizu's reckless behavior, which had resulted in a pay cut and a suspension of his teaching license. All Might apologized, explaining the difficulties in teaching someone who did not like him. Gran Torino reminded All Might of the promise he had made to Shimura and questioned why he had not passed on one for all to Aizu. All Might reflected on his past judgment of Aizu, realizing he had underestimated him. Gran Torino then shifted the conversation back to the hero killer, indicating that there was more to discuss. I saw him only briefly in person, but in that short amount of time, he shook me to my very core. There is such hatred inside that man, Gran Torino thought as I sneaked into the teacher's lounge. It was hard to believe that someone could frighten someone like Gran Torino. He must have already been restrained, so what could have scared him? I closed the door behind me. Gran Torino explained that it probably stemmed from the man's fanatic ideology. There was something very intimidating about his obsession. He wasn't trying to praise him, but he noted that the man had the same determination as Gran Torino when it came to his symbol of peace. There were similarities. Curious, I asked what he meant. Gran Torino elaborated that both of them possessed charisma. As the investigation continued, the man's ideology and opinions would be all over the media. Everyone would want to know his motives. The age they lived in, for better or worse, was one of suppression. There would be people across the globe influenced by these new ideas. If that were true, and he inspired copycat villains, they would likely act on their own. Heroes would be able to stop them, just like they had this time, I suggested. Gran Torino then mentioned the League of Villains. The Hosu incident suggested that Stain and the League were connected somehow. This meant that the League would transition from being seen as a group of juvenile delinquents attacking UA to being recognized as a group with an ideology. In other words, these new converts would seek them out. Even if each individual was insignificant, if that evil gathered under one banner, it would swell to unstoppable proportions. If the villain in charge had known this would happen from the beginning, then he was a brilliant strategist. He was steadily eliminating obstacles one by one, trying to create conditions that would favor his own purpose. When I heard from Tsukachi that Nomo had multiple quirks, a bad feeling settled in. What if he was back? I clenched my fists, concerned that it could be the man who killed Shimura, my sworn friend, my master, and the previous holder of one for all the man who had caused me so much pain. Gran Torino recognized my fear. He understood that I was worried about the villain named All for One rising again. For him to have survived such an injury, I didn't want to imagine it was possible. Gran Torino advised me to be honest with Toshinori, suggesting that I should tell him in case he needed to take over One for All if my successor failed. He deserved to know the truth. 2 days after the Hosu incident, the hero killer's identity and motives started being dissected from various angles. A broker lamented the difficulty of doing business lately, with his associates complaining about the inability to sell items. It was a serious crime to develop or sell support items and costumes without a license, and rumors circulated that legitimate support companies were selling extra gear on the black market to those who weren't certified heroes. The broker missed the days before All Might when villains were wild and impulsive, believing they could take over the world. Everything changed when All Might appeared, making things boring. He wondered if it was time to finally call it quits. An intermediary warned him not to be rash, revealing a way to make some real cash. He showed the broker a video titled, "Kill the Heroes, Stain." The broker, confused, asked what it was. The intermediary explained that it was a video of the hero killer, who was currently very popular. As the video started, it showed a picture of Stain before blood droplets appeared alongside an image of the hero killer tied up. The narrator explained that Stain, whose real name was Kaizome Akaguro, was inspired by All Might's debut as a child. He enrolled in a private hero high school but became disillusioned with what he saw as a skewed understanding of heroism. Throughout his teenage years, Kaizome advocated for a return to the early days of heroes but quickly realized that words had no power. For the next 10 years, he trained in killing techniques to fulfill his self-appointed duty. During this time, his parents passed away in what police ruled a tragic accident. He focused on returning to the old days, believing that heroes should not seek compensation and should epitomize self-sacrifice. He viewed present-day heroes as frauds and hoped that through his violent actions, society would eventually side with him. The video concluded with Stain declaring that the streets must run with the blood of hypocrites and that he would reclaim the word hero. He challenged anyone to try and stop him, declaring All Might as the only true hero worthy of his respect. The broker snapped out of his trance, realizing that the video kept getting uploaded and taken down online, but it couldn't be stopped. It was clear that Stain was stirring something in people. From villains with countless convictions to felons on the run, all the major players, including the broker, were watching. The evil that was once quiet and scattered now had a rallying cry, and individual criminals were seeking out the organization connected to the hero killer. They were all headed to the League of Villains. It had been 2 days since the Hosu incident and 5 days since Class 1A started their internships. I had to wait for May to finish my new endoskeleton, but everyone on the news was obsessed with the hero killer. The story being reported is that 7 pro heroes and 3 high school students stumbled upon a situation that required immediate attention. Endeavor rushed in and handled everything himself. This was the official cover from the police department. The chief kept his word, and Ida, Todoroki, and I were never implicated in the hero killer incident. Our injuries were attributed to accidents during our internships. After Ida received his exam results and discovered one of his arms was seriously injured, he returned to his parents' house for care. Fortunately, Todoroki's injuries were not as severe. I narrated this as I walked with a nurse, getting accustomed to my new endoskeleton after what was termed surgery. In a flashback, Todoroki mentioned his return to his internship, preparing to leave. He expressed his desire to learn everything he could from his father, despite the rumors that Endeavor had defeated the hero killer, with his son's assistance. He wanted to see if there was any shame on his father's face as he left the room. I thought to myself how intense he always was. I wondered how everyone was doing. At Gunhead Agency, Uraraka was instructed by Gunhead on how to fight against someone wielding a blade. He stood across from her as she held an army knife, hesitating at first. Gunhead encouraged her not to hold back. With determination, she charged at him, swinging the knife, but he effortlessly dodged. He explained that when someone is wielding a knife, it's best to keep a distance. If they attack directly, one should plant a leg to pivot and dodge, then grab their wrist to take them down. He demonstrated this by swiftly disarming her, showing how to twist the attacker's wrist to make them drop the knife and kick it away for safety. Uraraka marveled at his fluid movements, realizing the effectiveness of gunhead martial arts. He suggested they practice this until it became second nature. Meanwhile, Kirishima and Tetsu were at a park with Fourth Kind, who emphasized the importance of giving back to the community as part of being a hero. They reluctantly complied, picking up trash as Fourth Kind encouraged them to stay motivated. In a tense hostage situation, Jiro used her earplug to assess the situation. She reported hearing only 2 hostages. As Death Arms prepared to enter, he instructed her to lead the hostages to safety. Jiro followed the 2 hostages, feeling a sense of pride as they expressed their gratitude. At Pro Hero Selki's agency, Tsuyu emerged from the water after cleaning the bottom of a ship. Sirius asked how her work was going, and Tsuyu shared that she had finished cleaning the deck. Sirius reflected on the reality of being a hero, contrasting her childhood fantasies with the mundane tasks of patrols and cleaning. Despite initial fatigue, she found meaning in her role as the captain's sidekick, realizing the true essence of heroism. Tsuyu was curious about this revelation, but Sirius suggested it would be better for her to discover it on her own. Selkie approached them, playfully chiding Tsuyu for not being more active. After some light-hearted banter, an urgent message arrived from the Coast Guard. Selkie asked Tsuyu to help unfasten the ropes as they prepared to set sail, and she complied with a cheerful ribbit. Sirius praised Selkie for his skills as they began pulling the rope onto the boat. Selkie confirmed their readiness before announcing the emergency departure, which was met with enthusiastic responses from the crew. With the propellers spinning, the Oki Mariner set off, and Selkie expressed pride in their swift action. After some time, Sirius inquired about their mission. Selkie explained that the Coast Guard had received a tip about stowaways on the trade ship, Nyson. However, upon inspection, no stowaways were found, but crucial cargo was missing. Selkie turned to Froppy for her insight, and she deduced that the stowaways likely moved the cargo to another ship before the Coast Guard arrived. Selkie confirmed her theory and emphasized their responsibility to track down the criminals, suggesting they had escaped on a small boat nearby. Selkie displayed a hologram map, indicating the area they would focus on for their search. As the sun began to set, he instructed the crew to prepare for radar searches while he would scout the ocean himself. The crew responded affirmatively, ready to follow his lead. Present Mike provided a brief overview of Selkie's abilities, highlighting his strength and sonar-like skills. As Selkie swam through the water, he realized he needed to expand his search area. Meanwhile, Froppy and Sirius scanned the surroundings with binoculars but found visibility challenging in the darkness. Sirius reassured Froppy, reminding her that Selkie was also searching for the stowaways. A message from the Coast Guard alerted them that a fishing boat, suspected to belong to the stowaways, had evaded a hero agency patrol. Selkie quickly confirmed the boat's location and ordered the crew to approach stealthily. They complied, ready to follow his orders. As they neared the target boat, Selkie instructed the crew to block its path and prepare to board while signaling with a flare. Froppy felt uncertain about her role, but Sirius encouraged her to trust the captain's judgment, emphasizing the importance of teamwork. The crew successfully impeded the stowaway's course, and Selkie took charge, announcing their presence and intent to inspect the fishing vessel. As they prepared to board, the crew reported that they had found no missing cargo. The captain insisted they would find only humble fishermen aboard. Selkie pressed the captain to reveal what was inside a fish hatch, prompting annoyance from 2 stowaways, Karasu and Tombai. They reluctantly opened the hatch, but it was too dark to see clearly. As tensions rose, the stowaways pushed the captain into the hatch, believing it would buy them time for their escape. Meanwhile, the crew struggled to contact the captain, realizing they had lost communication. SK-3 decided to investigate further, but Sirius urged caution. Using her quirk, she listened closely and deciphered Selkie's Morse code signals, revealing that the stowaways were on a different boat. Sirius quickly directed the crew to start the ship and pursue the stowaways, emphasizing the urgency of the situation. They set off at full speed, determined to follow Selkie's orders and trust in his leadership as they raced against time. In the captain and in them, Sirius expressed, nodding in understanding of the task. A minute later, he pointed out the ship hiding behind the rocks, noting the challenge ahead. SK, slightly annoyed, acknowledged the difficulty. Sirius ordered to cut the engines and approach their blind spot, and SK complied. He then asked if I was in this with them, to which I croaked in agreement. Behind the stowaway ship, we spotted a girl with a squid-like head in yellow guarding the boat. SK noted the presence of a lookout. Sirius asked if I could bring the guard over, and I assured him I would handle it. Using my tongue, I wrapped it around the girl and pulled her towards us. She protested, but Sirius quickly covered her mouth, stating that if she answered our questions, we wouldn't have to resort to force. After a few questions, we secured her. I asked if we were ready, and Sirius instructed me to proceed. I used my tongue to lower us onto the ship, where Sirius informed us that only one other person was hiding in the main cabin. SK confidently stated he could take care of him, but was suddenly sprayed in the face with ink. He yelled in surprise, and just as Sirius warned him, he was struck by a tentacle, knocking him out. Sirius pushed me out of the way just before a tentacle grabbed her. I called out her name in alarm as the door to the main cabin was forcefully blown off by several tentacles. Innsmouth, the villain, laughed menacingly, revealing his identity. He taunted us, expressing his disbelief that only a girl and a kid were left to stop him. Sirius attempted to strike him with a baton, but he easily swatted it away and tightened his grip on her. He threatened to return her only after the Coast Guard called off their search, demanding my help to unload the cargo. Static interrupted him, and he listened intently as SK's voice came through the radio, asking for a status update. Innsmouth realized it was a radio and handed it to me, insisting I repeat his words if I valued Sirius's life. Sirius warned me not to comply, but Innsmouth silenced her with his tentacle. Worried for Sirius, I hesitated as the villain pressed me to act. He mocked my concern for my friend, urging me to hurry. In that moment, I recalled Sirius's words about what it meant to be a hero and the importance of following the captain's orders. I realized I had to trust in our mission. With newfound determination, I pressed the button and shouted our location into the radio. Sirius silently thanked me just before the villain slammed her to the ground, furious. He threatened me, but I dodged his attacks. I shot my tongue towards Sirius, wrapping it around her waist, but the villain caught it and threw me against a rock pillar. He declared it was the end for me, but just then, two figures flew through the air, knocking him away. The figures were Tanbai and Karasu, who called out to their boss as they fell back into the water. The villain shouted in frustration, but then something leaped from the water, and I ribbited happily as Selkie appeared. He apologized for being late and assured us he would handle the situation. However, the villain shot ink at him, but Selkie dodged, demonstrating his skill. Even without sight, he declared he could sense the villain's presence and would not let him escape. As the villain landed back on the ship, he unleashed a series of attacks, which Selkie expertly blocked. Sirius seized the opportunity to grab the villain's leg, causing him to lose balance. Selkie shouted that it was over and delivered a powerful kick that sent the villain crashing into the water, creating a splash. I was amazed by the captain's prowess. Sirius called out to me, and I croaked in response before jumping back onto the ship. Concerned for my well-being, she asked if I was hurt, and I reassured her I was fine, but I worried about her. She expressed gratitude for my help, and Selkie emerged from the water, praising our teamwork in capturing the stowaways. Sirius felt relieved, and I thanked Selkie for his support, realizing how much I had learned during this internship. I understood what was truly important in being a hero, and it would guide me toward becoming a pro. The next morning at the docks, the Coast Guard announced the arrest of all the stowaways, having recovered the illegal cargo they attempted to smuggle. One officer commented on Selkie's new sidekick, catching my attention as I croaked softly. Selkie explained that I was a UA student here for an internship. The officer apologized for the frightening experience we had endured, but Selkie defended my abilities, stating that I was an excellent hero. Despite not having my license yet, Sirius nodded in agreement, and the officer expressed anticipation for working with me again in the future. Hope to see you soon, Froppy. The CG says as I shake his hand, giving happy ribbits. To be continued. Aizu stood outside Gran Torino's house, stretching his legs. He expressed his gratitude, thanking the old man for his training. Gran Torino playfully retorted, smacking Aizu's leg with his walking stick, which barely moved him. Aizu smirked, impressed by his strength. Gran Torino reminded him that he wasn't around during the major events that shaped their world. Aizu acknowledged that without Gran Torino's training in reflexes and speed, he wouldn't have been able to defeat Stain. Gran Torino attempted to smack Aizu's head with his cane, but Aizu dodged. Gran Torino noted that while Aizu had improved, he still had much to learn, especially after losing his paw. He encouraged Aizu to keep training and said goodbye. Curious, Aizu asked why Gran Torino wasn't well known in hero society despite being All Might's teacher. Gran Torino explained that he never had much interest in being a pro hero, only obtaining his license to use his quirk freely. He suggested that Aizu should hear more about it from All Might himself. Aizu then inquired about one for all, a term he had heard frequently. Gran Torino indicated that it was unlikely All Might would explain it. As Aizu began to walk away, Gran Torino reflected on Aizu's potential, recognizing him as the future hero chosen by his friend, the one who inherited one for all. At you? Laughter erupted as Shiro and Kiri found Bakugo's hair in disarray. Bakugo, frustrated, threatened them, but Shiro continued to tease him. Kiri noticed a note on his desk that made his face pale. The note read, "I hope picking up trash was fun." He looked around, realizing others had received similar notes, some smiling and others looking worried. After a moment, Mina expressed her jealousy that Jiro had faced actual villains, while Jiro clarified that she had only helped with evacuations. Aizu approached, affirming that evacuating people was still heroic work, which made Jiro feel a bit intimidated by his height. Sue mentioned that she had spent her time training and cleaning but had encountered drag smugglers. Sue then turned to Uraraka, asking about her week. Uraraka took a calming breath and mentioned that it had been enlightening. Sue remarked that Uraraka had found her fighting spirit, and Jiro agreed, noting how different she seemed after just 1 week. Kaminari commented on the changes in Aizu, Todoroki, and himself, drawing attention to their experience with the hero killer. Shiro, held back by Bakugo, expressed relief that they had returned safely. Momo and Sato echoed their concerns, noting how fortunate they were that Endeavor had arrived in time. As the conversation shifted, Ojiro mentioned the hero killer's connection to the League of Villains, raising the tension in the group. Aizu offered to snap the hero killer's arm again, but most shook their heads, not wanting to witness that. As the discussion continued, Kami brought up a video of the hero killer circulating online. Ojiro was surprised to learn of its existence. Kami commented on Stain's tenacity, prompting Aizu to glare at him, reminding him of the villain's true nature. Aizu emphasized that while some might find Stain intriguing, his actions were inexcusable, and murder could never be justified. To keep everyone else from suffering like him, Ida promised to strive to be the perfect hero. With a smirk, the narrator wished him good luck. As class began, Ida instructed everyone to take their seats. Toko remarked that Ida was back, while Jiro pointed out that it was Kami's fault for talking about strange things. Kami apologized, vowing to keep quiet, only to receive a light bonk on the head from the narrator, who reminded him to behave. The narrator recalled Ida's words from the hospital about leaving his left hand as it was until he could call himself a real hero, thinking to himself that Ida was already growing and wishing him luck. At Field Gamma, M announced the start of hero basic training, expressing excitement to see everyone again. He explained that they would be conducting a race, urging the students to apply everything they had learned from their internships to the rescue training. When Ida questioned why they weren't at the USJ for rescue training, M clarified that this was a race and introduced the model city, which was a labyrinth of factories. The students would compete in groups of 5, starting from different locations, and the first to find AM after he sent a distress signal would win, though he requested minimal property damage. As the groups prepared, Kami expressed concern about Ida being on the far side from AM, while Mei appeared unexpectedly, watching the training. Kiri placed his bets on Ida, while others chose different classmates, with Baku dismissing Kat's chances. Uraraka believed Ida could still win despite his recovery. AM initiated the race, and the students sprang into action. Shiro used his tape to navigate, Mina skated on the pipes with her acid, Ojiro propelled himself with his tail, and Ida sprinted through the area. Kiri cheered for Ida's strategy of staying above the maze, while Shoji noted Shiro's advantage. Suddenly, the camera lost sight of Ida, causing confusion among the students. Shiro remarked that the course seemed designed for him, but then the narrator sped past as a purple blur, propelling off pipes and walls with incredible speed. The students were astonished at the narrator's agility, with Baku realizing that the narrator had replicated his moves during training. Mina, hanging from a wall, expressed disbelief at Aizu's newfound speed, while Ojiro wondered how he hadn't collided with anything yet. The narrator then faced a large pipe, colliding with it, prompting winces from the others. A minute later, AM congratulated Shiro for winning the race and handed him a prize. The narrator sat nearby, with Mei checking for any damage. After reassuring the narrator, Mei kissed him and returned to the support course, while Shiro smirked at the narrator. The narrator warned Shiro not to mention the incident, and AM praised the students for their improvements since the beginning of the year, encouraging them to keep preparing for their final exams. He then approached the narrator, asking to speak after class. In the boys' locker room, Sato commented on the tough training, while Aoyama expressed fatigue. Kiri lamented his mobility, and Toko suggested improving other skills. Kami expressed jealousy over the speed of his classmates. The narrator explained that having a steel endoskeleton had its advantages. Mineta then excitedly revealed a hole in the wall leading to the girls' locker room, catching the attention of the boys. The narrator prepared to confront Mineta, but Ida intervened, warning against peeping. Mineta defiantly claimed he would do it anyway, but before any action could be taken, Jiro's earphone jack struck Mineta, causing everyone to flinch, though the narrator smirked at the turn of events. In the girls' locker room, Heiga thanked Kyoka for her assistance. "Despicable, we'll close up this hole immediately," Momo expressed, annoyance evident in her tone. Jiro felt a twinge of jealousy, wondering why she was the only one not mentioned. In the halls, I stood at the door to the teacher's lounge, muttering to myself about how this better not take long since I still needed to pick up Mei. After knocking, I entered to find M seated on the couch, looking serious. He gestured for me to sit, indicating that he had something important to share. As I settled in, I leaned forward, curiosity piqued. I asked if it was about the one-for-all quirk, and AM confirmed with a nod. He explained that one-for-all was a quirk passed down through generations, and he had been its previous wielder. I interrupted, surprised to learn he had possessed this quirk during our earlier conversation on the roof. I had admired him, wanting to be like him, someone who could bring smiles to others. Yet, I recalled his words about not being able to be a hero without a quirk and felt a surge of frustration. I turned to leave, but AM called out to me. I shot him a look that clearly conveyed my displeasure at being addressed in such a manner. He wished me a good day as I walked out, leaving him to lament his actions. To be continued. In a different setting, the live show began, with the host introducing the topic of whether heroes should dress attractively. The guests included MT Lady, a new hero, and Midnight, a pro currently teaching at UA High School. The audience behind the camera blushed at their presence. The host thanked them for joining and started with Midnight, mentioning how her revealing outfit had sparked controversy upon her debut. This led to discussions about regulations for hero costumes. Midnight explained that her outfit was designed for practicality, allowing her to perform her duties effectively. She emphasized that sometimes a hero's appearance was necessary for their work. Me Lady chimed in, suggesting that Midnight enjoyed the attention. Tensions rose between the two as they exchanged words, each defending their perspective on the issue of hero attire. Back at UA, Aizawa concluded the class, reminding everyone that final exams were just a week away. Students expressed their concerns about not having enough time to study, especially with the recent sports festival and internships. Some felt anxious about the upcoming tests, while others, like Mineta, boasted about their rankings. I wrapped my tail around a couple of classmates, playfully reminding them that they still had time to study. Ida, ranked second, admonished me for my antics, while Todoroki pointed out that paying attention in class made it hard to fail. I released my grip, allowing them to breathe. Momo offered to help catch up on important topics, and her classmates eagerly accepted her offer. Jiro and Siro also sought assistance with their studies, and Ojiro joined in, hoping for help. Momo enthusiastically agreed to host a study session at her place over the weekend, and excitement filled the air as they discussed it. Kirishima expressed his desire to study with Momo, while Bakugo, ranked third, voiced his frustration about the situation. Aoyama, ranked 18th, commented on the panic among students, while Shoji reminded him to be concerned about his own performance in the midterms. The atmosphere buzzed with a mix of anxiety and determination as everyone prepared for the challenges ahead. Aoyama acknowledged his failure, despite his confident words. In the cafeteria, a sense of unease filled the air. One student expressed a feeling of dread as they waited for their order of sliced fruit at the end of the table. They explained that their friend Aizu had a unique energy source that needed constant fueling, much like how a body weakens without food. Ida, after a moment of silent reflection, reassured everyone that the upcoming practical exam wouldn't be too daunting. However, another student admitted to feeling anxious about the physical portion of the exam. Uraraka, who had placed 13th, shared her own concerns, feeling as if she might be overwhelmed during the test. Haga, who ranked 16th, reminded them that the exam would be a comprehensive assessment of everything they had learned. Tsu chimed in, noting that they had managed to gather limited information from Mr. Aizawa. Uraraka speculated that the exam would cover combat and rescue training, along with basic training. Just then, 4 large cups of chopped fruit were placed in front of the student at the end of the table. As they began to speak, an unexpected collision sent the cups tumbling. Minoma from Class 1B made a comment about the student's head, drawing the attention of the entire cafeteria. The student's demeanor shifted dramatically, their eyes glowing with intensity as they stood up, ready to confront Minoma. However, Kendo from Class 1B intervened, swiftly incapacitating Minoma with a well-placed strike. She held him by the shirt, apologizing for his behavior while the student sighed in resignation. The student expressed a desire to keep Minoma away from their food, but before they could finish, they were tackled to the ground by Mei, who urged them to calm down. The student agreed to refrain from violence as the cafeteria returned to its usual bustle. Kendo remarked on Minoma's lack of empathy, eliciting a chuckle from the student and Mei, who found the situation amusing. Kendo then shared that she had overheard the details of the final practical exam, revealing it would involve combat against robots, similar to the entrance exam. The student expressed skepticism, still feeling uneasy about the upcoming challenge. Minoma attempted to voice his thoughts, but Mei quickly silenced him with a device, handing Kendo a remote to release him. In the classroom of Class 1A, excitement buzzed as Mina and Kami celebrated the prospect of an easier exam against robots. Shoji pointed out their struggles with controlling their quirks, but Mina and Kami remained optimistic about the opportunity to unleash their abilities. Siro suggested they seek help from Yaoyorozu to prepare for finals, and the 2 students eagerly agreed, believing they could now attend the training camp. As the student approached, they urged the others to lower their voices, wanting to rest. Baku, irritated by their enthusiasm, questioned their excitement over fighting robots or real people. He directed his frustration toward the student, accusing them of mimicking his moves. Uraraka speculated that the student had been practicing, while Mina wondered how they had learned Baku's techniques without witnessing them firsthand. Baku expressed his determination to prove his superiority in the upcoming finals, vowing to show everyone how much better he was. As Baku stormed out, the student reflected on his intensity, while Kiri and Toko exchanged thoughts on Baku's growing impatience. Aizawa observed from outside the classroom, concerned about Baku's escalating emotions. At Momo's house, awe filled the air as her friends marveled at her family's wealth. Jiro rang the doorbell, and Momo welcomed them warmly through the speaker, inviting them inside. In the grand hall, Ojiro felt out of place as they gathered around a long table. Siro echoed his sentiment, but Momo's cheerful presence reassured them that everything was perfect. Meanwhile, another student was engrossed in their work, drawing with ink while lifting weights with their tail, all while Mei rested on their back after completing one of her inventions. Uraraka was half asleep while trying to study, Ida was jogging and reading flashcards, and Bakugo playfully hit Kirishima on the head with a rolled notebook as he attempted to teach him. Momo was instructing the others, who diligently wrote down her words. As Aizu observed, class proceeded normally until Aizawa instructed everyone to put their pencils down. He requested that the last person in each row bring their answer sheets to him. Mina cheered her gratitude, while Kami expressed his relief at not leaving anything blank. Aizu felt a smirk form on his face, pleased that they had managed to finish. With that, their 3 days of written exams came to an end, and it was time for the practical. The setting changed to a building with an unreadable sign. Aizawa began the last test, reminding everyone that it was possible to fail this final. He warned them not to make any foolish mistakes, as all the pro-hero teachers stood before the students. Jiro questioned the presence of all the teachers, and Aizu shared her curiosity, sensing an unfamiliar presence nearby. Aizawa noted that many students likely had gathered information and thought they knew what to expect. Kami excitedly announced that they would be fighting large metal robots, while Mina cheered for the upcoming summer camp. However, Aizawa's scarf revealed a voice that interrupted, explaining that this year's tests would be entirely different for various reasons. Principal Nizu emerged from Aizawa's scarf, surprising the class. Aizu sighed, realizing he should have anticipated this change. Momo expressed her confusion about the alterations. Nizu explained that the tests would now focus on hero work, teaching, and combat against actual opponents. He revealed that students would be paired up, with their opponents being esteemed UA teachers. The students were taken aback by this revelation. Uraraka was particularly shocked to learn they would be fighting their teachers. Nizu elaborated that partners and opponents had been chosen based on various factors, including fighting styles and interpersonal relationships. He announced that Yaoyorozu and Todoroki would face Aizawa, while Midoriya was paired with Bakugo, who would be up against All Might. The realization filled Aizu and Bakugo with a mix of anger and fear. 2 nights earlier, in the UA meeting room, Principal Nizu discussed the potential for increased criminal activity due to the connection between the hero killer stain and the League of Villains. He emphasized the need for the school to prepare for this possibility. Pro-hero Snipe noted that training against robots was no longer practical, as they did not provide enough of a challenge. Aizawa suggested ignoring complaints about student injuries, while Midnight expressed concern over the fairness of having students fight teachers. Pro-hero Cementos and Pro-hero 13 shared similar worries about the potential unfairness of the situation. Nizu agreed that the practical exam needed to reflect the current times and emphasized the importance of pushing students to become stronger. He outlined the teams, explaining that Todoroki and Yaoyorozu would face Aizawa, while Midoriya and Bakugo would be up against All Might, based on their perceptions of the hero. Back in the present, Nizu announced the teams and their respective teachers. The matchups were as follows: Sato and Kirishima vs. Pro-hero Cementos. Tsu and Tokoyami vs. Ectoplasm. Ida and Ojiro vs. Power Loader. Todoroki and Momo vs. Eraserhead. Uraraka and Aoyama vs. 13. Mina and Kaminari vs. Principal Nizu. Koda and Jiro vs. Present Mike. Shoji and Hagakure vs. Snipe. Siro and Mineta vs. Midnight. Bakugo and Aizu vs. All Might. Aizu approached Power Loader, expressing concern about leaving Mei unsupervised, fearing potential chaos. Power Loader reassured him that she was in the camera room and any possible damage would be monitored. Relieved, Aizu returned to the group as Nizu explained the exam's objective, to either capture their teacher with HNDCFFS or escape from the combat stage. Kami interrupted, eager to clarify that it was similar to combat training. Mina questioned the fairness of running away, but Nizu confirmed that it was indeed acceptable, promising that this experience would be much different from their previous training. After all, they were up against people far more skilled than them, PM stated, gesturing animatedly. Jiro, feeling confused, questioned whether PM was just the announcer. Koda attempted to intervene, urging her to be respectful. PM, annoyed by Jiro's comment, reiterated that the exam would closely resemble a real battle. As strange as it sounded, they were to think of the instructors as villains. Snipe added that if they encountered an enemy, they should fight if they believed they could win. However, he cautioned that in situations where they were outmatched, it would be wiser to retreat and seek assistance. Aizawa addressed Todoroki, Ida, and Ori, confident that they understood the implications. In the midst of their thoughts, Native's voice echoed in their minds, warning them that the hero killer was targeting him and the kid in white armor. Ida resolved not to make the same mistake again. He would pass this test and prove himself as a hero. The plan was clear. They would either fight to win or run to win. AM emphasized that the exam would test their decision-making skills, noting that the rules might lead them to think fleeing was their only option. To counter that, the support course had designed clever accessories for them. AM produced a wrist weight, proudly declaring it to be ultra-compressed. PM chimed in, explaining that these weights would add significant strain to their bodies, consuming their stamina and hindering their movements. AM struggled under the weight, realizing it was heavier than anticipated. He mentioned that a contest had been held to create these designs, and someone had won his girlfriend May. Ida, having seen her work on them, confirmed his knowledge of her creations. Baku, confident, dismissed the need for a handicap against them, prompting laughter from AM. With a serious expression, AM anticipated the challenge ahead, while Ida thought to himself that they would likely be overwhelmed. Aizawa announced the start of the exam, calling Sato and Kirishima to the stage. They responded affirmatively and were informed that those waiting could either watch or strategize as a team. Ida suggested discussing their quirks with Ojiro, who agreed, while Tsu invited Tokoyami to join her in planning. In the camera room, Recovery Girl noted the workload ahead as she monitored the exams. Aizu lay beside her, deep in sleep. Uraraka, curious, asked about Aizu's usual demeanor outside of school. May chuckled, explaining that while he was not much different, he had a soft spot for those he trusted, especially her. At the exam area, the announcer called for Team Sato and Kirishima to begin their practical exam. As they dashed through the area, Kirishima proposed that capturing would yield a higher score than fleeing. Sato agreed, but their plans were interrupted by a large stone wall that emerged from the ground, revealing Komentos nearby, poised to attack. Kirishima noted that Komentos was not particularly agile, prompting Sato to prepare for a direct assault. Kirishima encouraged breaking through the wall for a high score, and Sato fueled his strength with sugar, readying himself for the challenge. May, observing from the camera room, explained Sato's quirk, Sugar Rush, which enhanced his strength at the cost of cognitive function. As they charged at Komentos, he created multiple walls to block their path. Kirishima shouted encouragement, and they launched powerful punches, creating craters in the walls. However, May pointed out that Komentos had no limits, and the walls kept multiplying. Kirishima grew frustrated as Sato began to tire, struggling to stay awake. The walls began to encase them, and Komentos warned them about the importance of knowing their limits in battle. The buzzer sounded, signaling the end of the exam, and the announcer declared that Sato and Kirishima had been eliminated. Meanwhile, Kami expressed disbelief at how quickly it had happened, while Tsu reacted in surprise. In the camera room, Recovery Girl realized her assistance was needed and prepared to leave her chair. May remarked on the consequences of brute force against someone with control over the battlefield. With Tokoyami and Tsu, Tokoyami observed that they were starting in the middle of the stage, preparing for their turn in the exam. In order to escape, they needed to pass through the designated gate, which meant the teacher was likely waiting for them. Tsu noted this just as a buzzer sounded, signaling the start of the second test. The announcer called out their team, and several clones of the pro-hero Ectoplasm appeared. Ectoplasm declared that the teachers were determined to challenge them without holding back. As they attempted to retreat, more clones emerged behind them. Ectoplasm urged them to steel their nerves and show their resolve before charging at them. The scene shifted to Tokoyami's perspective, where he recalled the announcer's words and the clones that had appeared. Ectoplasm's quirk allowed him to create clones by shooting ectoplasm from his mouth, capable of producing multiple copies at once. Tokoyami felt the pressure but remained focused. He called out to Dark Shadow, who emerged from his back and tossed Tsu into the air. Tsu then used her quirk to lift Tokoyami higher, and they both felt relieved that they had planned their strategy in advance. Meanwhile, in the monitor room, Uraraka cheered for their teamwork, while Mei worked on an invention, noting their compatibility. Recovery Girl commented on the importance of communication between heroes, emphasizing that true heroes need to connect with anyone, not just their teammates. Back with Tokoyami and Tsu, Ectoplasm acknowledged their decision to avoid a direct confrontation. As more clones appeared, Dark Shadow took action, but more clones continued to spawn. Tsu skillfully used her tongue to knock away a clone that threatened Tokoyami, allowing them to continue their escape. They soon found themselves facing another wave of clones, but they remained determined to keep moving. In the monitor room, Recovery Girl analyzed Tokoyami's strengths and weaknesses, noting that while he excelled at long-range attacks, he struggled in close combat. She praised Tsu for her well-rounded abilities and her crucial role in supporting Tokoyami. After defeating another clone, Tokoyami and Tsu spotted the goal and realized that the real Ectoplasm was waiting for them. Ectoplasm congratulated them on getting past the clones but warned them of the giant clone he was about to unleash. As the massive clone towered over them, Ectoplasm taunted them, confident in his control over the situation. Tokoyami urged Tsu to be cautious as the giant clone attacked, threatening to capture them. Ectoplasm reveled in his power, but Tokoyami called upon Dark Shadow for help. Dark Shadow, feeling slightly offended, prepared to charge at Ectoplasm but was swiftly knocked away. Tokoyami expressed doubt about Dark Shadow's chances against a professional hero, but Tsu remained hopeful, suggesting they could still win if Dark Shadow reached Ectoplasm. She asked Tokoyami to call Dark Shadow back, hinting at a plan that left him puzzled. Tsu seemed to struggle with something, indicating it was something unpleasant to witness. Ectoplasm continued to taunt them, demanding to see a student who could overcome an adversary. Tokoyami called for Dark Shadow again, who returned to grab something from Tsu. With renewed determination, Tsu encouraged Dark Shadow to charge back into the fray, proclaiming that they were heroes. As the battle intensified, Tsu revealed her strategy, having swallowed the cuffs that could have restrained them, believing it was the only way to ensure their victory. Tsu explained that her quirk allowed her to take things in and out of her stomach, prompting Ectoplasm to express his surprise as he adjusted to being leg-cuffed. In the monitor room, Uraraka reacted with astonishment at the sight of Ectoplasm being restrained, while Mei suggested it could be useful for Izuku, who quickly dismissed the idea. Back with Toko and Tsu, the announcer declared that Team Azui and Tokoyami had passed the final exam. Ectoplasm approached them, commending their cleverness, to which Tsu riveted happily and DS proudly claimed credit for their success. Meanwhile, Momo reflected on her own past failures at the sports festival, noting that she wasn't surprised by Tokoyami and Azui's achievement. From Ida's perspective, he and Ojiro found themselves at a construction site where the ground was crumbling beneath them. Ida expressed disbelief that Mr. Powerloader was capable of such destruction and suggested they find a hero better suited to handle the situation. Ojiro confirmed they should retreat, but as he flicked a rock with his tail, the ground caved in further. Ojiro pointed out the traps between them and the gate, emphasizing their uncertainty about where Mr. Powerloader would strike next. Ida remained optimistic, insisting they could succeed if they worked together. Ojiro agreed, and they executed a fusion move, with Ojiro wrapping his legs around Ida's waist. Ojiro felt a bit embarrassed about their appearance, suspecting Mei was laughing at them. In the monitor room, Mei laughed heartily, but Aizu intervened, using sleep gas to ensure she didn't pass out from laughter. Back with Ida and Ojiro, Ida initiated their move, calling for Reciproburst as he propelled himself forward, dodging the traps. Ojiro thought about their speed, but suddenly, Powerloader emerged from the ground, laughing and blocking their path. Ojiro panicked, urging Ida to think quickly. Ida instructed Ojiro to wrap his tail around his leg, and with a swift motion, he spun them like a top, launching Ojiro toward the exit. Powerloader attempted to intercept but was momentarily distracted when Ojiro knocked him away. In the monitor room, Aizu sighed, relieved that his girlfriend had missed the chaos. Back with Ojiro and Ida, the announcer confirmed their success, and Ojiro congratulated Ida on their risky but effective strategy. Power Loader acknowledged their performance, and Ida expressed his gratitude. In the monitor room, Uraraka cheered for their success, while Aizu reflected on his own aspirations to be a perfect hero. He noted Ida's predicament, with only his head above ground, and felt a sense of concern for the upcoming challenges. From Momo's viewpoint, she and Todoroki prepared for their turn in the practical exam. Todoroki noticed her nervousness and reassured her that he had a plan. As they entered the makeshift neighborhood, Todoroki instructed Momo to create small objects, indicating that when she could no longer do so, it would mean Mr. Aizawa was nearby. The announcer introduced Aizawa, who had the ability to erase quirks with his gaze. Todoroki emphasized that their success depended on who found Aizawa first. He planned to draw Aizawa's attention while Momo would escape to secure their victory. As they navigated the alleyways, Momo created small dolls resembling herself, which caught Todoroki's attention. She explained that they were Russian nesting dolls, and he reminded her to be aware of any changes in her quirk. Momo admired Todoroki's quick thinking and felt a sense of inadequacy compared to him, recalling her struggles during the cavalry battle and her failure to stand out. Todoroki encouraged her, but as Aizawa appeared, he urged Momo to act. Aizawa, hanging from power lines, warned them to prioritize evasion since he had nullified Momo's quirk. He dropped to the ground, ready to confront them. Todoroki charged at Aizawa, but the teacher dodged and swiftly restrained him, leaving Momo to react quickly in the face of the unfolding challenge. Aizawa was determined to catch Todoroki first, given the strength of his team's offense. As he secured one end of his scarf to a pole, he kept Todoroki suspended. Todoroki, confident in his abilities, declared that he could easily burn or freeze the restraints. Aizawa, undeterred, warned him to be careful where he landed before strategically tossing small caltrops beneath him. In the monitor room, Aiza questioned Aizawa's choice of strategy, wondering if Recovery Girl could heal minor injuries. Recovery Girl confirmed that while she could heal small wounds, they would leave marks. Back with Todoroki and Aizawa, Todoroki scoffed at the use of caltrops, comparing Aizawa's tactics to those of a ninja. Aizawa, aware of Todoroki's quirks, felt fully prepared to face him. He applied eye drops, emphasizing that Todoroki's plan placed too much responsibility on himself. Aizawa dashed off, leaving Todoroki to ponder the situation. Meanwhile, Aiza's voice echoed in Momo's mind as she ran toward the gates, filled with doubt and questions about her ability to succeed. She worried about Todoroki and whether she was making the right choices. Aizawa observed her struggle, recognizing her loss of confidence since the sports festival. Suddenly, Aiza's voice came through the speaker, encouraging Momo to regain her confidence and focus on what she needed to do. Aizawa, feeling the weight of the moment, wrapped his scarf around her arm, urging her to think clearly. Determined, Momo realized that her quirk was still active. She created a weight under Aizawa's scarf, allowing her to slip free. Grateful for Aizu's encouragement, she turned and ran back. Aizawa noted her change in direction, reflecting on her tendency to compare herself to Todoroki and her struggle to trust her instincts. In a moment of clarity, Todoroki hung from the lamppost, contemplating Aizawa's words about communication. Just then, Momo rushed to him, surprising him with her return. In the monitor room, Aizu observed the unfolding drama, sensing a potential love story brewing. While Mei slept peacefully nearby. Back with Todoroki and Momo, she expressed her regret for returning, but he interrupted her, warning her about Aizawa's approach. Momo panicked, torn between saving Todoroki and finding the right course of action. Aiza's thoughts echoed in the monitor room, urging Momo to stay strong despite her stress. Todoroki reassured Momo, asking if she had a plan. He acknowledged that he should have consulted her instead of dictating what to do. Momo felt defeated, believing their plans were bound to fail. However, Todoroki reminded her of Aiza's advice to focus on what she wanted to do rather than the possibilities. He encouraged her, recalling how she had received votes for class representative, including his own, because he believed in her leadership abilities.